Welcome to the acclaimed podcast, Deep Dive with Andy and the White Whale.
Welcome to the Deep Dive, NFL Week 3. This is the big one. We're going through full slate. Huh? This is the big one. We're going through the full slate of 16 games. Andy, how you doing today?
15 games. We're going to skip Monday night. We always do.
Okay, fair enough.
But again, we're still not into bye. It's huge slate. I'm doing great. Football's fun as long as you're winning. And you know what? Even if you're tying, I guess.
I like it. Well, the whiff of upset is in the air for me this week. I'm taking a couple of moneyline dogs on my card. I can't wait to get into this breakdown here. We are joined by one of our all-time favorite special guests, none other than Twitter personality extraordinaire, Mr. Lockie Lockerson. How are you doing on this beautiful NFL Wednesday?
I'm good. Thanks for having me, guys. I didn't realize week 3 was the big one. You probably should have had somebody who's been paying a little more attention on, but I'll try to impersonate an expert the best I can. So.
They're all big ones, man. And you know, we only get 17 NFL weeks a year, so they all matter. Let's actually, you know what? Before we dive into this NFL card, it would be a disservice to our listeners not to get some of your thoughts on how the college football season is unfolding. We're coming up on week 4?
Yeah, it's there's
the
like
big
a
one.
week. There's a week. Zing. There's a week 0 now, which kind of throws everything like a little out of whack. But yeah, like this is still technically called week 4. So
week 0 is a hoot. We were in Vegas for that. We were watching.
That's right. It was fun.
Hawaii's good now.
Yeah, it was even better if you had New Mexico State. It was a great week. If you had New Mexico State like I did, that was great. So.
All right. Well, what do you think? We're about to enter conference play, right? Like it's about
correct.
To get,
this is the last week of the last week of non-conference for a lot of teams, and I think that I'll just sort of take the baton from you, and I have just a couple, especially for people that only watch NFL football and maybe you watch college casually, or you read it about a little bit, you only watch the huge games. Like really, what's happened this year is I think the difference between the top tier teams and the rest is probably wider than it is in most years. You have like really a sort of like group of super teams that has already established itself, which would be Alabama, Georgia, Clemson, Ohio State. There's a couple other teams that I would sort of have as like fringe playoff contenders, which would be something like, LSU, Mississippi State, Oklahoma, but like the number of teams that can realistically have a chance to make the playoff is so small because the likelihood that Alabama and Clemson are going to make it is so large. So I would say that's point number 1. And point number 2 is really what I would just call a mania about Alabama as a team. So I think everybody, who was in front of a TV on Saturday night saw 62-7 against Ole Miss. Mm-hmm. And watched opening night Saturday night in primetime against Louisville and saw Tua Tagovailoa. No kidding. And saw Tua Tagovailoa play in any of the games and basically come to the conclusion that this team is unstoppable. And they are insanely talented. There's no question about that. The problem that I have is that they're receiving a really high or a really large amount of credit for basically beating teams that any of the other super teams would also dispatch with that amount of ease. So Alabama in week 1 beat Louisville, which was at the time considered not a phenomenal win, but it was at least considered a reasonable Power 5 win. And since then, Louisville has basically proven to be like almost a bottom feeder ACC team so far. Like I'll be really interested to see if they turn around in conference play, but they've switched quarterbacks. They almost lost to an FCS team. They almost lost to Western Kentucky last week. Western Kentucky might be one of the worst teams in college football. So the Louisville win to me now becomes like a throwout. It doesn't tell you anything about Alabama whatsoever. Week 2, they play Arkansas State, which would go exactly as if Clemson played Arkansas State or Ohio State played Arkansas State or whatever. I think it was 55-7 or something. So again, like nothing, we don't learn anything there. And then week 3 against Ole Miss is the first time when it was like, all right, we're kind of going to get a feel for the dominance of this team. And for sure, they passed every test. Ole Miss had the number 1 ranked S&P Plus offense coming into the game, and they scored on the first play and then didn't score again. And they were playing at home. So Incredible. Of course, that's really impressive. So, but I just think, when you're giving credit for wins, everyone's giving Alabama all of the credit in the entire world when maybe they don't necessarily deserve it. Meanwhile, Clemson has a better win than Alabama. Georgia has a better win than Alabama, and Ohio State has a better win than Alabama. So I think that, the Golden Nugget Casino put out basically these, not fake, but projected spreads between Alabama and other college football teams if they were to play in the national title game. And that's generated a lot of conversation, which is obviously really good for the Golden Nugget. That was the whole point probably. But the spreads themselves are kind of wacky and sort of help, point out the Alabama mania narrative that I'm kind of trying to explain. So I believe Alabama was 9.5 against Ohio State, 10.5 against Georgia, and 11.5 against Clemson, I think is what was displayed. I definitely 9.5 and 10.5 were definitely true. That's wacky and incorrect considering the information that we have at our disposal right now. That might prove to be correct 8 weeks from now, I guess. I find that incredibly unlikely. But basically, this mania with Alabama it's definitely going on right now, and it's going to continue at least for another month and a half because their schedule is just so incredibly easy. They're going to be they're going to be 3-4 touchdowns minimum each of the next 5 games. And then they finally, in the back half of their schedule, to me, that's when we actually learn everything. So that's at LSU, that's versus Mississippi State, that's versus Auburn. Those are 3 of the last 4 games. So to me, it's like, this is all almost some kind of elaborate preseason in terms of judging Alabama's competence. Alabama's weakness is parts of their defense and their 2 coordinators and their ability to make adjustments. And those are things that are never, ever going to come out in a game where there's incredible talent mismatches. You can call base everything and win by 100. You can just do that against these teams when you have 5 stars at every position. When you play Georgia in the SEC championship game, when you play some of these other teams, when you play Urban Meyer, when you play Dabo in a playoff game, that's when some of these characteristics could come to the surface. So I think just if you're looking for the overarching theme, so far it's everyone's obsessed with Alabama, and there's sort of these other contenders right behind them.
So you're telling me I shouldn't? You're telling me I shouldn't?
Well, we can't. We'd have to fly to the nut. Well, you could drive, but
yeah, I could drive to the desert and get my family down.
I have a little quick question on somebody. I mean, basically, let's say you take these lines, transitive property. Ohio State's 2 points better than Clemson. Then, so if Clemson goes up to the horseshoe, the Ohio State's a 5-point favorite. Is that how you would look at this? Because somebody made that argument. And is that 100% how you would look at this with power numbers, or is any of this, a little bit of matchup based too, where they're saying, "Oh, Ohio State's better than Clemson now because of this," or are these is that all silly and these are just horse shit numbers for putting out in September? None of it really matters, and I think it's probably that third option.
A lot of options. I would say a little bit of everything, right? So So first of all, I have Ohio State as even better than Clemson than what the spreads have. But I think Ohio State's the most talented team in the country. I think they're more talented than Alabama. I don't think they're there yet necessarily in terms of that talent coming to fruition, but that's sort of a separate issue. I think with title game odds, I think the other incredibly large wrinkle that comes into play is the amount of time between the end of the regular season and the semifinal and then the final, which kind of creates these weird situations that need to be handicapped differently because of coaches and how much time off they get and which coaches are better with time off than others. And then that actually ends up kind of affecting the handicap and the rating. Nick Saban is sort of notoriously amazing in spots where he has a chance to prepare as much as possible. So, I think that part of it is just kind of we're going to put out some numbers. I think from what I understand from sources, there's a low maximum bet allowed on any of this. But, I think it's sort of, let's get some publicity. We'll put out numbers that are, they generate talking points and they're maybe kind of close, but they're a little inflated. We'll take tiny action and we'll get a lot of publicity. I think that's really kind of what's going on here.
Oh yeah. I mean, if it weren't for the FanDuel thing, which God, we don't have time to get into that.
Yeah. I think it's for the best that
nor do I even want to, but if it weren't for that, that would be one of the biggest things just kind of going around gambling social media today is that, the power number things. You're right. It is a good conversation piece, if nothing else.
Interesting. Yeah. Can I ask you to dig a little bit on Alabama and their situation this year? Because for the most part, it hasn't been like this, where they were this overwhelmingly favored this early in the season, as far as I can remember. And the idea that they're going to get cupcake after cupcake over the next 4 weeks is, is this bad for them? Like, can you work up a narrative where like this extended preseason like doesn't actually help them? Like they could be learning like how to fight through adversity if they were playing more challenging opponents.
I think that you're right. In general, I think usually with Alabama, the schedule actually sets up similarly to how previous Alabama schedules is set up. There's always sort of non-conferences in the same spot. They always play Ole Miss as the first conference game, basically. LSU is usually on the same date. They always get a bye right before that. Auburn, the Iron Bulls, obviously at the end of the season. So the framework of the schedule is kind of the same. I would say the major difference is the quality of the opener was much less this year. And they played some not great openers before, but this was really not great. So this was basically not a test whatsoever. Like Louisville, I know Alabama played USC a couple years ago. They played Florida State last year. I would have to go back to remember the exact opponents 3, 4, 5 years ago. But I would say in general, in terms of point spread and caliber of team, slightly better than Louisville to way better than Louisville is sort of the range of opponents. And with how Louisville came into the year, like crazy low returning production at all positions. It's not just Lamar Jackson. It's the entire defense, basically. They changed defensive coordinators, and it was literally like a rock bottom cratered out defense with that their new coordinator took over. So like, I had Alabama week 1 and didn't think twice about it. And that's, it was sort of, that was the setup. Because of Saban and the culture and all these things. And, I bash the coordinators, and it's not that they're bad and it's not that they don't have a lot of talent. We don't really know the answer to those questions. It's more the unknown factor, right? So, previous coordinators, Jeremy Pruitt, especially, like you get in tough situations and you're able to make adjustments that sort of end up working out in a way that you gain an advantage over your opponent. And we don't know if these coordinators can do that yet. We have no idea. So, I think whether they were playing slightly better teams in the next 4 weeks or the teams they're actually playing, I don't know if it really matters. They're still going to have a bye week before LSU. Like they're going to go into LSU as prepared as possible, and then we'll see what happens.
Okay. Any chance the SEC gets 2 teams in the playoff?
Absolutely. I think there's a pretty good chance now that certain teams have absorbed losses that were maybe a little unexpected. Michigan has a loss, which was not super unexpected because of the closing line. But Michigan State having a loss already, Wisconsin having a loss already, Auburn having a loss already, like sets up this situation with Alabama and Georgia again, where you could see like a similar stuff. Miami having a loss already is actually really significant because I was sort of latching onto a possible narrative where Clemson and Miami could have both gotten to the ACC game undefeated and both made it if the SEC teams each kind of beat each other up a little bit. So I think that Alabama and Georgia, or really LSU and Georgia, or Mississippi State and Georgia, any of those pairings are perfectly reasonable to think right now could both make it.
Pac-12 definitely out, right?
No, not really. Like, to be honest, I actually Stanford oddly fits the
makes a run, baby.
Stanford oddly fits the profile for kind of what a contender looks like in terms of what they brought back from just like a sheer talent standpoint. Their actual on-field performance last year on defense especially was like one of the more mysterious things in college football. It was like all the players were still there, but yet something was wrong. And this year, I believe they're like top 10 in a ton of really important defensive metrics. So Stanford's like a little interesting. Oregon's still undefeated. We'll find out about a lot about both those teams Saturday night.
They play each other Saturday.
Yeah, and so basically like that division, which is undefeated Oregon, undefeated Stanford, one-loss Washington, who's probably the most talented team, and undefeated Cal, which is like this weird, sneaky, lurking team that is like a very veteran team, but not as talented. They're all going to just kind of play each other, and we're going to see what happens. The likelihood that anyone emerges from that undefeated is pretty low, but I would say of the teams, like Stanford probably looks the best, but maybe Oregon has the best schedule. So,
interesting.
It's sort of like, the winner of Saturday night's game obviously gets a huge leg up.
Interesting. Out of Oklahoma, Ohio State, and Clemson, who's the most likely going to be on the outside looking in?
Oh, man. That's a really good question. So what were my 3 teams there? Ohio State, Oklahoma, Clemson?
Yeah.
So
if they all win their conferences.
If if they all win their conferences, I'm going to guess Oklahoma takes a bad loss at some point. I think that they've absorbed some kind of cluster injuries at running back. Their defense seemed to be kind of fixed because of the quality of teams they were playing. And then Iowa State on Saturday kind of showed some stuff that made you kind of go, oh, right. Oklahoma defense, like, can't really tackle any actual legitimate receivers, all those kind of things. So there were just enough plays there where it's like, could TCU kind of catch him right? Could Texas catch him right just because of that rivalry game and the kind of weird stuff that goes on in that spot? When they play West Virginia the last week of the year, they play the title game against one of those teams again. Like, could they catch an L or two more than the other teams? Probably.
I love this. Last question about college, and let's get into this NFL. True or false? There are only 5 contenders left for the Heisman.
I mean, I just wrote about this for Action Network. I think that there's a tier of players where the winner is 98% of the time going to come from that tier. So, I mean, that's basically I'll write them down so I don't forget any one person, and their family gets really mad at me. So basically,
well, they probably listen. So yeah,
right. I mean, Tua is going to get invited. Whether he wins or not is going to turn into this weird philosophical debate about what is the best player in college football. Is it the best player on the best team, even if he only plays a half of 8 games, or is it somebody who has to mean more to the success of the team? So that, I look forward to that November 1st onward being like an every single talk show topic.
Existential.
Yeah. So Tua, Will Grier, Haskins, Kyler, McSorley can maybe win, but it's going to take kind of like, it's going to take a couple upsets, basically, results which were sort of not expected to happen for him to win. And then I think like the sort of sneaky dark horse right now is Jake Fromm, which I wrote about. Georgia is extremely likely to eclipse 10 wins, which is sort of like the magic number. You can win the Heisman with 9, but it takes an incredibly special season, one that maybe isn't really happening with anybody right now. So I think, you have one of the huge programs in college football that's going to make the playoff probably. He's by far their best candidate option because DeAndre Swift has been underutilized to the point that reporters are asking at press conferences if there's an injury or something wrong with him. So as a result, Fromm has sort of become the only candidate that they can present, and they're going to have just a billion primetime opportunities the rest of the season. And, he's going to play Tua in the SEC title game. That could be like winner of the game gets the Heisman. It could be something like that. And he's 100-1. He got bet down to 85-1 today. I have no idea if that was related to my article or not. If it was, cool. Hope everybody enjoys that ticket. But like he's 100-1 and Tua is like, 5-2. So who would you rather have? So
yeah,
we talked about this last year too. When do they vote on this?
So it's right after the conference championship games. The vote happens, and then the ceremony is
a week later, right?
It's like basically a week later.
The next Saturday, right?
Yeah,
exactly. I wasn't sure if how late they did that. If it was pre-conference championship games or what. So yeah, I guess I really do agree with that though. You're going to have Georgia with a lot of wins and Bama with a lot of wins and 2 quarterbacks. I'm looking back at my tickets. I have some Jake Bentley. That's
I think I tried to talk people into that at some point too. So if I like that a lot. Does so.
I have some Trevor Lawrence, which maybe just play him all the time, please.
Yeah, he's interesting. Like, I think that it's going to be really tough. So he sort of has the stat line that would not remove him from contention so far. His biggest problem is obviously like, cool, there's a platoon still. Kelly Bryant's kind of hurt. It's going to be weird the rest of the year. Their biggest problem, honestly, is they don't play anyone good already, starting now. They don't play anyone good the rest of the year. So like they're going to play Boston College, which will be like their best game, and BC will be ranked at that point. I've sort of written a lot about BC and their schedule, but when number 22 Boston College is the best game you're going to play for 9 weeks, it's kind of tough to really make a case that you're the best player in college football.
I got you. Bonus final question on college football. Is there one regular season game that you're especially excited about? Like, if you could only watch one college football game for the rest of the season, what's it going to be?
Oh man, that's an impossible question.
Yeah, right. Sophie's choice.
Right, exactly. There are 2 SEC games that I'm now incredibly fascinated by. So Alabama at LSU now becomes amazing when previously it was going to be anything but amazing. That'll be the first game that Alabama will actually probably be tested in, which will be really fun because there's always like every Saturday, I feel like everyone kind of keeps one eye or a half an eye on the Alabama score, like almost hoping that somehow something happens because it creates these epic moments. They just don't play a lot of close games. So whenever you can have that environment, I just feel like there's an extra buzz compared to when other teams play, even Ohio State, Michigan, or Ohio State, Michigan State, or whatever. I think that Alabama at LSU this year has the chance to be really special because of what LSU has shown so far. Hopefully LSU can make it to the game with, God, even one loss would be awesome. They play a crazy schedule going into that game. So that game, I think, is sort of already on the horizon, is really fun because of Alabama. And then another Alabama game, unfortunately, I coming into the year, I thought Mississippi State could have a really special season. They're sort of a weird college team compared to the super teams because the super teams are more of a reload, 5-star, next man up, just uber talented bunch of teams or bunch of players. And Mississippi State has done it basically by just with patience. They have like the most seniors of anybody in the country, basically. Almost all of their playmakers are seniors. There's just an incredible amount of talent and experience that's almost crested like a wave this season. And I love Joe Moorhead as a coach. Their problem is they seem to be playing some really dumb football right now, which when you play Alabama is going to be problematic. But just in terms of like sheer talent level, I really, really think they can hang on the field. And Nick Fitzgerald kind of presents this weird, sort of Saban kryptonite option at quarterback, which is when you have a quarterback that just is mobile and wants to run all the time. In the past, Saban teams have maybe had a little trouble with those guys. So I think those two games are already on my mind as like, can't wait for those to happen.
Oh, so good. Okay. Well, enough college. Pay the players for the love of God. And let's talk about
at least the good ones.
Yeah, very good ones. Let's talk about week 3 football.
What are we? There's got to be a big game to start out the week. What's first on the docket?
Right. Would you rather talk about Alabama, LSU, or Jets, Browns? Come on.
Oh my gosh, are you kidding me? The narratives in this are so huge. The top 2 quarterbacks drafted facing off on Thursday Night Football, except one of them will be on the sidelines. You got a resurgent Jets with Sam Darnold, who looks to be legit. Ran into some speed bumps last week at home in his home opener against the Dolphins. But I'm still, I'm still pretty positive about my Sam Darnold Rookie of the Year ticket. He heads to Cleveland on a short week. Cleveland Browns having a weird season. Pull off the tie against Pittsburgh. Looked like they were in the driver's seat for an upset against the New Orleans Saints down in the Big Easy last week before the wheels fell off. And you got Browns now at home on a short week. Hugh Jackson is not a great coach. Todd Haley and Greg Williams are not great coordinators by my estimation. That has me worried about the Browns' 3-point chalk on a short week, because as we've seen time and again through the years, coaching on Thursday Night Football matters an absolute ton. And so I don't know if I get entirely why they opened these guys as 3-point favorites instead of maybe just making them a little bit of a chalky money line or something like that. Andy, did you get any action on either side here?
I hit the opener. When it dropped a point, I hit over 39. I like some points to get scored. I think the Browns offense is starting to pick up a little steam. I was a little disappointed. I thought they were going to put up more points in New Orleans. I stayed away from that game other than just some New Orleans money line and a big old stupid parlay that ended up hitting for like minus money. But I really hope the Browns would continue. It was tough to really gain a lot of info from the first game with the weather. But what I saw in the fourth quarter with the comeback, I thought we could, let's roll that over against another shitty defense. And I don't know, the coaching there is just shitty all around. Everybody sucks. But I do look for Darnold to have a nice little bounce back, even on the road. I think both teams, it feels like a 24-21 game. 39 is just a little low. I could be dead wrong. This could be 6-3. This could be a really ugly Thursday, but I like me some Thursday second halves. I think we get some points. If this gets up a little higher and I'm not feeling as good about it, I might buy out. But I did grab that. I won't touch a side. I can't bet the Browns as a favorite yet.
No.
And Darnold's, he's still a little bit of an unknown. So Just gonna possibly have the total on my card. I grabbed it early, and that's about it for this one. I'll watch it. We'll do a Periscope.
I like your look there. I'm on the over as well. I actually I sold up to 40 and over 40 and a half to get a little better price here because I think this gets into the 43, 44 range pretty comfortably, actually. I still have a ton of respect for the Jets offensive coordinator Bates. He knows what he's doing. He's going to be able to find some space against this Cleveland defense, which I think is still suspect, even though they have playmakers. There's some important defensive injuries on both sides of the ball, which I think lends itself to points as well. Lockie, you got a feel for Sam Darnold, how he's looked so far this year? Do you think he's the real deal?
I do. I watched him a fair amount at USC last year. Obviously, it's tough to defend someone who on the first play of his career throws like a terrible pick six across his body where he was basically baited into making the throw on a wheel route. But, I think that like a lot of the throws that he's already making, arm strength, all those kind of like, physical qualities that you look for, I think he kind of passes the eye test, which is really cool. I can't, speak from like a super analytic standpoint, like a Pro Football Focus method about his performance so far. What I will say about this game that I just think is interesting, and I promise I'll talk way less about these games than college, is a couple things I wrote down. You mentioned like the defensive injuries briefly. When you see 5 defensive starters for Cleveland on the injury report, I have that as like sort of a red flag. Like maybe only 2 missed the game, but I think when you see half of a team's defensive starters on the injury report, that's sort of a red flag for me. So I would just keep that in mind. You guys are both betting the over anyway, so that's cool. The other thing I wrote down is just as somebody who's still, even though I don't really handicap NFL anymore, but I watch all the games, Sam Darnold was like sneaky not bad against the Dolphins. Sort of a note that I made. Yes. So they made a ton of atrocious mistakes. Obviously, we all kind of watched the end of the first half and either laughed or cried, depending on which side you were on. Yeah.
I was crying. I needed to but go ahead.
But yeah, so they have that end of half. They settle for a field goal in the red zone a second time, so they're 0 for 2 in red zone trips for touchdowns. Ton of turnovers. But on a yardage basis, accuracy basis, like Darnold's numbers were good. They moved the ball. It was sort of like maybe if you could call it, I mean, deceiving scoreline is a weird term because like if you turn the ball over that much and you fuck up the end of the half, like you deserve to lose. But, like just from like a metric standpoint and a numbers analysis standpoint, like I think that the Jets actually come out of that a little better than you would think given the result.
I completely agree with that. And I think it's because they're a well-coordinated team. The offensive coordinator for the Jets is legit. If I was considering firing my head coach, I would be watching a lot of game tape on the Jets and getting a feel for if this guy's got the chops to be a head coach, because I really think he's got an innovative scheme going here. And if he develops Darnold in 1 year, then they'd get this guy hired as a head coach somewhere.
I agree with you. I think him and Hackett might be head coaches next year.
I could see that. I like the other thing that I think lends itself to the over here is Tyrod Taylor is relatively familiar with this facing this Jets team. Mm-hmm. Would you believe that this is the 4th game that Tyrod Taylor has taken on the Jets on Thursday Night Football? How crazy is that? Bills, when he was the quarterback for the Bills, they played the Jets on Thursday night 3 times. And he was able to get at least 21 points in all 3 games. A couple of those games.
A very infamous color rush where colorblind people couldn't see anything. The red-green colorblind team. Yeah.
I forgot about that. Color Rush was fun. Oh, well. Okay. Well, let's look for some points tomorrow. I'm excited for what could be otherwise a pretty bad game, but hopefully it's competitive. Hopefully there's some points scored. And let's talk about Sunday. Interesting. We're going to go right down the list here by the rotation number. The first up, I'm looking at Indianapolis heading to Philadelphia. Second straight week in a row on the road for Andrew Luck and company. We saw them pull off a pretty impressive upset in DC last week. It's going to be much tougher sledding in the home of the defending champions who are angry after getting their tails kicked in Tampa Bay. Carson Wentz back on the field for the first time in 2018. We really don't know what to expect out of him. Just the fact that he doesn't really have a ton in terms of healthy receivers, and we haven't seen him throw the football in so long. This was an easy cross-off for me. I talked to our friend Suma for a little while about betting the over. He made some great points that kind of steered me clear of the over here because I was not impressed with that Philly defense last week. They missed a ton of tackles. They took a ton of terrible angles and got burned by
both of those long touchdowns. It was
just awful defensive execution in that game. And so I kind of wanted the over here, but I ended up staying away. And did you pick side here?
It is a cross off for me. Just the uncertainty of Wentz coming back. Maybe later in the week, if we hear something or if I see footage and he looks good, I don't know. I'm not the kind of guy that's going to be swayed by that, I guess. I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about.
Did you want to bet Philly?
I kind of want to, but man, the defense kind of just looks like they're resting on their laurels.
Yeah,
They looked lazy. Like, granted, Fitzpatrick has nothing to lose. He's just out there slinging it. Djax is fast. OJ's a good tight end. And then you haven't even mentioned the best receiver on the team. They have weapons, and we've mentioned this, and, Suma would be proud of this. The whole running backs don't matter. Maybe the fact that their running backs suck so much shit. They have to throw the ball. They know, like, our running backs are bad. We need to throw more. And it's accidentally turned them into a good team.
It's crazy. I think that's a good read.
I think Philly gets the win, but I'm not laying that kind of points in kind of an uncertainty game with the Wincy back.
Interesting. Lockie, you impressed at all with Andrew Luck getting his first win since his comeback? And, are you more on the side of Luck is getting closer to returning to his old self, or do you think there's a little bit of overselling that narrative just because people are interested?
Well, first off, Andy and I had the same note because on my notebook I wrote "running back sucks so much shit." So it's crazy we had the same note. It's amazing that like just two deeply analytical thinkers can come up with the same argument. That's really wild. So I guess I'll just cross that one off. So I think I wrote down like a couple questions for each game, just try to like basically flesh out more information as opposed to put myself up there as an expert. The question I wrote down for this game is, did the Colts actually play well last week? So they were outgained in total yards. They played at Washington for people that kind of forgot. Outgained in total yards, outgained in first downs. They lost the turnover margin. And you ended up with 21-9 Indy as a result of those three things somehow. If I was still producing SportsCenter, this would be like Elias Sports Bureau tells us that the last time that happened was, like the 1961 Philadelphia steam engines or whatever. And it's like,
yeah. And we did get into that a little. It was third downs and red zone efficiency. They got Washington was awful on that. And that's a good way to lose a game that you probably should have won.
Right. So is that Indy? Does Indy get do they get credit in terms of a ratings bump? Like this game strikes me as this is one of those reasons I'm glad I'm not an odds maker. Like this is like a really hard game to line, in my opinion. Like this is with uncertainty at quarterback, a ton of injury stuff on both teams. I think I read today that Marlon Mack, T.Y. Hilton, and Jack Doyle all didn't practice, which is always a great sign going into a game. So basically every playmaker for the Colts isn't practicing. The Eagles have a ton of injuries, some on offense, and a new quarterback. So, how are you possibly lining this correctly? I don't know. A pass for me too, but I thought all this information was really interesting. So.
Yeah, I'm still in the camp of Andrew Luck is a good player on a team that otherwise would be bottom three. He's not throwing the ball downfield as his depth of target is his depth of target is significantly shorter than we saw him when he was most effective. I wanted to back Philly here too, but again, if Alshon Jeffrey was out there, I'd probably look a little bit more carefully at Philadelphia here with laying the chalk. But I think they probably get the win here, and it probably comes in pretty close to the total. I'm actually capping it 27-20. So I'm right on -7, and I'm right around 47, which is the total. So let's move on down the line and talk about what I think is one of the emerging stories early in this season, which is the Bengals might be good. You got Andy Dalton and company heading to Carolina as 3-point dogs in an interesting spot where they have extra rest play after coming off of an impressive win on Thursday Night Football. They have a substantial mismatch with their defensive line against a Carolina offensive line that has sustained one of the more spectacular cluster injuries that we've seen so far in the NFL this year. Cam Newton and company, you saw Cam Newton take a shot to the head last week. I worry about him taking more shots like that in this game and throughout the duration of this young season. Carolina heading into their bye next week. Weird week 4 buys. I don't like week 4 buys personally, but Carolina gets their bye next week. I think they head into the bye week on a sad note as Andy Dalton and company pull off the upset. I'm grabbing the money line here. I got it at a price of 135-ish, I think. I wish I had that handy. I think that really the defensive line is the difference maker in this game. And Bengals pull off an upset 23-21, 23-20, something like that. Andy, are you with me on the Bengals as a road dog?
Haven't bet it yet, and if I do, I'll get a worse number than you, apparently. But I do lean that way. The cluster injuries, I bet the Bengals week 1 because of their defense, and I think they've yet to show us their best game, and they are off extra rest. Cam got hit in the noodle. Basically, the offense is going to revolve around throwing it to McCaffrey 14, 15 times a game, which if you try to take that away, and what's the status of Greg Olsen right now?
He's got the boot off of his foot.
Yeah,
but he is not playing in this game.
Yeah, he's not playing. If you can try to take McCaffrey away, with some good coverage linebackers, I think you can hold Cincinnati, Carolina to a pretty low score, and that'll take a lot of the pressure off Andy Dalton, even going on the road. But gosh, with extra rest, I do lean that way. Haven't bet it yet, but it's dangerously close to making my card. And if it's not going to make my card that way, and it's sitting in that Carolina -2.5 range, it might be a Red Rocket teaser.
Ooh, interesting. Can I sell you on the Carolina Panthers offense is even worse than the 24 points they put up against Atlanta last week? Lockie, did you see any of that game? Is this a box score? Another deceiving box score here? It felt like the Falcons defense was in shambles, having lost 2 of their most important pieces, yet Carolina only managed 24 points in that game despite a ton of possessions. Do you think that the Bengals defense can suppress this team?
I do. I actually think this game is really interesting. So a couple things I wrote down. The total right now, I'm looking at the under of 44 -105, and I'm not sure who's scoring in this game.
Yeah.
With frequency. So like Cincinnati will have no running game. And Carolina will have no offensive line, and their receivers have been abysmal. Yep. And so, I as sort of an illogical sort of betting trend, I feel like Carolina plays so many like 9-6 home games. God, man,
seriously,
unbelievable. So I'm sure there's absolutely no statistical evidence of that, but in my mind, that's an awesome trend. So
no, you're not wrong. It's a low scoring stadium. It's on the lower scoring. It's at the lower end in like the Luke Kuechly era. It's been relatively low scoring.
Yeah,
There's good defense at home.
Joe Mixon is out. Giovanni Bernard's injured. And just with Carolina's offensive line, I feel like you're just catching both of these teams right for an under with sort of how the line has been stretched a little bit. I mean, Cincinnati kind of like flukily gave up all those points last week. It should have been 28-0 almost out of the gate. There was that crazy triple coverage 60-yard catch that kind of got the game to the where it was at, where both teams ended up running a ton of plays. But so I kind of looked at the under. And then the only other thing I would say about the Bengals being good is I didn't bet into a lot of preseason NFL markets because I told myself I was kind of just being 100% college this year. The one NFL market that I wrote about and bet into because I couldn't resist was Coach of the Year. And if you're like me and you grabbed some of that Marvin Lewis 40-1 money, then you couldn't be sitting prettier right now. It's like the best. First of all, he's already won the award, so we was going to win it. He can absolutely win it again, but just Cincinnati fit all the criteria. Matt Nagy fits the criteria too. There's a couple other guys, Vance Joseph, who looks really good too. But if you ever want to bet into the dumbest, most mispriced, hilarious market in the entire world, just read my piece about Coach of the Year and then go check out what the odds were and what the odds probably should have been. It's phenomenal. So I got the Andy Dalton jersey this year. I'm a big Bengals supporter. As somebody who hit Sean McVay 100-1 last year to win this award, this is just the best. So I'm with you, Marvin, you and me. So
I love it. I'm on some wild Cincinnati team total win overs as well, and I got them to win the North. I'm a lot invested in Cincinnati right here, so maybe under is not a bad look to add to my already placed money line bet here. Andy, you got a feel for under in this game as well?
I guess I did kind of make a case for it when I talked about Carolina won't score a lot of points, and then Andy Dalton won't have to. So I hadn't looked at the total, but it does feel a titch high. I don't see Carolina scoring a ton. And honestly, yeah, Cincinnati too with some injuries. It does kind of feel like kind of a 20-10, 20-7 type of game.
I feel like still though, like Cincinnati without their running back could be, the same sort of story we see with a lot of these other teams. They're going to have to rely on the passing attack, receivers. And that might be good. Yeah, they have great receivers. They have like 3 legit tight ends. Their receiving core is great. We still haven't seen John Ross do a damn thing, but he could emerge eventually. AJ Green scoring 3 touchdowns last week was kind of crazy. Probably won't see that again, but you never know. Let's move down the card.
I tipped him in my fantasy tweet.
Be I'll look for a Carolina team total under. Ooh, maybe that's the angle. Ooh, I kind of like this. I'm gonna probably look for that, and then that'd be a nice little double shot here. Hopefully, Cincinnati wins and the defense and does it with defense. We're gonna skip Tennessee, Jacksonville.
We
don't know what's that.
You're looking at about 20.
Yeah, probably gonna be right in that range. No, it's gonna be higher than that. It's gonna be like 23. Because
they're favored. They're favored.
Yeah,
it's gonna be like 23.
Yeah, give me under 23 in a heartbeat. Let's skip over Tennessee, Jacksonville. We don't know if Mariota's going to play. Tennessee is kind of a hot mess right now anyway. I think they're worth skipping until they figure out who they are as, their identity as a team. Jags coming off a huge win against New England. Even if there was a line, I think I would probably be skipping this one. Let's talk about another frisky road dog that I got involved with early here. Drew Brees and the Saints heading to Atlanta. I mentioned I felt like the Atlanta-Carolina game, it went over the total, but I feel like there was a ton of points left on that field, and they were mostly points by Carolina. I think this Atlanta defense is extremely suspect. We saw, of course, the Saints give up 48 week 1 to Tampa Bay. That was fluky as hell in my mind. I think the more effective New Orleans defense showed up last week to play the Browns. It's clear it felt to me like the Saints were kind of living in the shadow of how their season ended last year. And until they got that win last week against the Browns, I think they were kind of, they had it in the back of their minds. Hopefully that palate is cleansed now and Drew Brees and company get it done in Atlanta. I think this is a case of wrong team favored. I do think that with the injuries sustained by Atlanta, you have a defense that is now in the bottom third of the league. And I still don't trust Sarkisian. Give me the Saints to pull off a victory here. I think I got them at around 140-ish. Yeah, I'm looking at Saints plus 140 is my ticket. I'll go with Lockie first here. Were you surprised at how pedestrian the Saints looked through 2 weeks?
A little bit. The questions I wrote down for this game kind of play into that, I guess. I don't think I have anything I'd be interested in betting with what was listed spread and total, but the 2 questions I wrote were, is it weird that New Orleans and Atlanta are being rated as exactly the same right now? And what is more likely, that New Orleans will figure it out or that odds makers will continue to overrate them for a few more weeks until the market sentiment becomes that they're just mediocre? So I guess I think they're an interesting case where, I think a lot of, confidence that bettors have, I guess is the right word. Maybe that somehow factors into their ratings also is solely based on last season. And I would wonder how much weighting goes into the first 2 games compared to last year when there's such little turnover on the roster. So I would guess I would just send it back to you guys with those sort of thoughts in mind.
Well, I'll let Andy give us some thoughts. We talked about this a little bit on
a lot of people
Sunday
I respected. They rated the Saints really high. So a lot of people, and honestly, a lot of it was how they opened the numbers. Saints numbers to win the Super Bowl, the NFC, they were pretty long and they were worth grabbing, but I am surprised at how they've played. And I don't know if it is just kind of the doom and gloom cloud hanging over from last year. Brees is a little older. Ingram hasn't seen the field yet. People aren't going to be surprised by Kamara anymore. I think they get it right. I think they make the playoffs, but I'm not completely sold on them as a Super Bowl contender anymore. And, I hate to downgrade a team that's so hard right away, but that's just, I haven't seen that spark in the offense yet. And then obviously the defense is playing how they're playing, which is badly. And granted, everybody who's played Ryan Fitzpatrick has got shredded so far, but boy, like if you'd have showed me the schedule to start, I'd be like, well, win-win, like easily win-win. And it almost went loss. Like that was a real sketchy. They had to have a big fourth quarter turnaround. I'm staying away from this game. I actually like Atlanta. If I didn't think it was luck or serendipity that they scored in the red zone. I think Sark kind of he knew, like you have to know that people are talking about that because everybody is talking about it, how inept they were against the Eagles, and they looked a lot better. And it's not like the Eagles, it's not like the Eagles defense looked great in week 2. So I think that really is indicative of how bad that week 1 loss was for the Falcons. And the offense looks fixed. The defense is beat up. So it's kind of a stay away for me.
I think is that the ghosts of Atlanta behind you, Andy? Is that who's making that noise right now?
That's on Wales' end, I think. I have no idea what if nobody can claim that noise, then I am kind of freaked out.
Are those actual white whales? Is that it? Yeah.
Oh, it could have been. We saw last, I feel like New Orleans is the kind of team that takes a longer view of the season. Like they don't really press early in the season. We saw last year, they kind of took a
Patriots-esque.
Yeah, they got beat like a drum against the Vikings and the Patriots in the first 2 weeks of last season. And that kind of snapped them into like, okay, we need to get our shit together and get a win here. And they go in week 3, they head to Carolina. Carolina at that point had been undefeated, and they beat the pants off the Panthers on the road, 34-13. This has every whiff of this exact same kind of feel. Like it's week 3, you're playing a meaningful game. This is, your season starts now. You click get your get your game right. Get your pull out your best plays. You got to get this win against the Falcons. Everyone heading into the season talked about it. Like Falcons and Saints, one of these two teams wins the South. Granted, now we're talking about the Bucs is potentially spoiling all this, but whatever. I like the Saints in the spot a ton, and it's going to be a while. Sark's going to have to prove it to me over more than just one game.
Oh yeah,
he's gonna have to. I'm going to have multiple losing weeks against him before I really get serious about Atlanta having their shit together. So
I wouldn't put it past you.
Okay, well, I'm gonna grab. Still, even if this is like a relatively a tight game, coin flip type of game, if I can get plus 140 on the money line for the Saints, I'll take that every single time. I'm capping this as a 3-point win for the New Orleans squad, and let's move on down the line to a game that I thought I had a good feel on, but I've since completely backed off of. Broncos are heading to Baltimore. This is the same, again, kind of there's a lot of echoes of 2017 in this week's card. Week 3 we saw last year, the Denver Broncos had spent the first 2 weeks at home, comfortable at altitude, got a couple wins. Impressive. They had an impressive win week 2 last year. Headed out to Buffalo for week 3 and got the doors blown off them. It wasn't competitive, and it was one of the easier kind of buy low spots buy low, sell high spots that I can remember of all 2017. It's setting up this way again with the Broncos having 2 wins and being considered contenders in the AFC West, now finally leaving the comforts of home to play Baltimore. Ravens, meanwhile, have extra rest after playing on Thursday Night Football. They're trying to get right. Potential that they're looking ahead a little bit to playing the Steelers next week, but we'll just pretend like these guys are professionals and they're going to get motivated for this game so that they can get a win and go 2-1 instead of 1-2. I had Baltimore circled as a great play, opened at 5.5. It's still sitting at 5.5. They've got a ton of important injuries. Maybe no one more important on this whole squad than CJ Mosley. And it looks like he's probably a no-go. So that's all I needed to see to bail out. Andy, did you stick with Baltimore on this as a play for you this week, or are you done?
I think it still might be a play. I did grab some. I've sold it up to 6. It looks like minus 102. I have it on my play sheet. man, first true road game here. I'm trying to look at the line for it now. What it's still around 5.5, I'm guessing.
Yeah, 5.5.
I don't think we've
hasn't
seen enough yet. First true road game, going east, Baltimore extra travel. Denver's defense hasn't impressed me. I don't think either of Denver's wins are impressive as of right now. We've seen what the Raiders are, and I mean, Seattle isn't a world beater right now. They're not what they were in years past. So they're a really sneaky, shitty 2-0. And I don't think they're going to go on the road and compete. Case Keenum's battling an injury right now. I am a little worried about the Baltimore injuries, but man, I think Flacco can put 28-31 on these guys. And that's me stumping for Joe Flacco, MVP right now. But it'll probably stay on the card. I like this one. I'm a big extra rest guy, especially at home with the other team coming east. It's just a lot of situational stuff, and maybe that's baked into the line already. But I don't rate the Broncos very high right now.
Interesting. This is actually, I think it's a little down from the look ahead. I want to say the look ahead was right around 5, so maybe they didn't really adjust it much.
No, it's pretty close, I think.
Yeah, Blackie, you got a feel for the Ravens this year? Do you think they're contenders or frauds?
I would probably lean frauds, just in terms of if we're talking about like Super Bowl or legitimate playoff contender. I mean, can they make the playoffs? Yes. Can Denver make the playoffs? Yes. This number was actually kind of interesting to me. I do sort of agree with Andy that, just because you win 2 games but actually look at, sort of what happened in those 2 games. I felt like I watched more Denver Broncos football the last 2 weeks somehow, because timing of the game and red zone and where red zone spent their time than most teams. And I mean, I would say Denver, Oakland rivaled Giants Cowboys as one of my least favorite games of the season, in terms of like the quality of play on the field for sure. Yeah. At the same time, like, we're really saying that Baltimore's 2.5 points better than Denver in this spot. That's really what the line is telling us. I think that's kind of interesting given all the factors you guys have talked about. I agree that Denver is, like, quote unquote a fraudulent 2-0, but I don't know. This line does seem like a little big to me. I don't have like a particular bet that I like, but I do think the spread is a little interesting. I think Baltimore is getting a lot of credit for maybe some of the factors that you guys have talked about.
Interesting.
That's a good point too. That Baltimore's week 1 win. Let's not give them a ton of credit either. The Bills,
They were
like Alabama, Ole Miss, basically.
Bills are terrible. But I still think the offense is going to click. I'm worried about the defense, but you guys might have talked me off the ledge a little here.
Hey, what about Andy? Let me ask you this: if you think Baltimore can get 28-31 points, that team total over is going to be ripe for the picking. Yeah,
I know it. I've been only betting Charger team totals, so that's my thing.
Okay, well, how about the full game over? Because Denver's got playmakers. They're going up against the Baltimore team that's going to be without Jimmy Smith, without C.J. Mosley. This total sits a little low, bettable 44. I almost pulled the trigger on this over too, after I kind of talked myself out of laying the points on Baltimore. I might revisit this and end up betting the over in this game. I feel like it's the right look. You got a feel?
Boy, yeah, with the defensive injuries, this could end up being like a 31-24 kind of game.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Because Denver has shown some offensive prowess. Weird splits. I gotta find the tweet, but the like catches per or the yards per target or yards per catch for Sanders and Thomas, they're really off. Like if you were a DFS player or fantasy, there might be something to be said for Keenum might be finding a favorite at this point in the year, especially when it comes to deeper plays.
Ooh, interesting. Okay. Well, let's hold off on making a solid play for me on that. You're going to stick with Baltimore, it sounds like. I think that's probably the right side, so good best of luck on that. I don't have much to say positive at all about the Giants or the Texans. I would put this in the lucky category of unenjoyable football watching. Yeah.
Stink town.
Houston Texans. are on the verge of firing Bill O'Brien. Did you bet into the first coach fired market at all, Lucky?
I didn't. I put a little bit of effort into thinking about it, but in the end, I came up. I just those markets are so fun, man. Like, I don't care what the limit is. I like, if you like having fun, then you need to be betting into those. So,
I missed the BOB
priced correct. Yeah, they're not priced correctly whatsoever. I think when I ended up looking at it, I think I took an afternoon and priced it a little bit, just in terms of like, okay, if I created a pool of guys, like what kind of price could I get? And I think I ended up with too many guys who I thought were actually like, legitimate candidates. So I think with Coach of the Year, the pool was at least like, I think the pool was 12 and I ended up picking 6 and ended up getting like 4-1 in the pool or something. But like with first coach fired, I maybe it's just the pessimist in me. I found myself making a case for like 17 guys to be the first coach fired. And I was just throwing everybody into the pool. So
well, I mean, the preseason favorite. Yeah, the preseason favorite is 2-0 right now,
with wins against the likes of Philadelphia and New Orleans.
Yeah,
unbelievable. Bill O'Brien was an easy one to put in the queue in the pool for first coach fired. The guy is already in tight straits with this general manager. They have a team that has a glaring hole at offensive line. Deshaun Watson still coming off of his ACL, can't get time to get his shit together. I could almost make a case that the Giants are a live dog in this one.
No, let's not go do that.
Yeah. What do you think, Andy?
That's such a bad offense, such a bad offensive scheme. Maybe the worst game I've watched in a while was Cowboys-Giants. I enjoyed so little of that game. Granted, we had the under, so it worked out. But, boy, like, just talk about unimaginative defense or offense on both sides. I don't know what Shermer needs. I like Shermer a lot. I don't know what the philosophy is there, that's what they're going to do, because it's not going to work. They're going to win 4 or 5 games. It's bad. And I'm not a big, like, must-win, coaching for his job, narrative guy, but Bill O'Brien loses at home as a touchdown favorite. That's it, isn't it? I mean, that's done. He's done so at that point.
Yeah, probably.
I mean, going 0-3 and losing to the Giants at home the way the Giants have played.
And how last week's game ended. Oh, my God.
Oh, yeah, just brutal. Like, I would think he'd be done there. So I think Texans probably pull out a win, but it's not something I want to bet into or watch.
Are you surprised? The look-ahead preseason on this was New York was Houston -6, and they haven't adjusted at all for the fact that Houston looks way worse than was expected.
Well, I think the Giants look worse than they expected, too. I think they moved them both down.
Okay. Fair enough.
Two lateral moves.
That's not crazy. Okay. No. Well, let's keep moving. Put B.O.B. out of his misery. Let's talk about Raiders Dolphins real quick. I grabbed the over here. It's probably one of my weaker plays of the week. I'm capping this 23-27 in favor of the Dolphins. I like how the Raiders tend to have gotten their shit together when they're playing in the early spot on the East Coast. I have no idea how or why this is the case, but if you go back to the last couple of years, something clearly has changed in the way that they're preparing off season to be ready to play these early games, and they tend to shine. So it wouldn't surprise me if they pull off an upset or cover. But I'm going to grab the over here because I think the Raiders defense is a disaster. They, especially in the second half, this unit is going to give up points. You combine that with the fact that they'll be down in the heat in Miami, and by all accounts, if the Raiders have a lead at halftime, do yourself a favor and look at a Dolphins to win the game price, because you will not be disappointed. But my only look on this pregame, I'm on Miami over 43.5. I feel like this is about a touchdown shy. So let's get some points. Andy, you going to take a side on this?
I'm staying away. I rated Miami so lowly. They've won 2, but I mean, like we talked about the Jets, were they great wins? We had a weird 6-hour game, and then we had the Jets just kind of, growing pains with the young quarterback and some weirdness before half. Like, I feel like they could have lost that game. I really, really am down on the Titans right now. So another kind of sneaky, maybe they're not good 2-0. The Raiders are the Raiders. I would lean to the over, if anything. I definitely agree with you there. I think both teams are going to give up points. It does feel like it should be like a 48-49. Where did you have it at? I'm 44. 44 is low. It should be, at worst case, like a 46.
47. 40, yeah, exactly. That was my thought, too.
I'm staying away from this. I do like that over. Maybe we tend to do this more on primetime. Maybe even an alt over on this. Maybe not the crazy rolling alt overs, but maybe one.
I would just
I want 49.
Yeah, I would just want to add something. Yeah, sorry. I didn't think I had anything on this game. I thought it was lined correctly, but I would just be curious. In college, there's a couple trends that end up coming up early in the season in non-conference play, where if you have like 2-0 ATS team versus 0-2 ATS team, or 3-0 ATS team versus 0-3, it actually ends up being like the 0-3 team or the 0-2 team, I think works out to like 54%, 57%. There's other like things you can manipulate to create like margin of victory and stuff, to create like percentages that are even higher than that. I would be curious. I mean, the Raiders got destroyed by the Rams. But they did cover against Denver last week. Never mind. I still don't have anything for this game. So,
well, let me ask you, Lockie. We've heard from the whole universe on this John Gruden situation in Oakland. You think they would be a live dog if they could just find a pass rush somehow?
I mean, if only they had any players in their organization who they could turn to. So the thing about Gruden that always gets me, and I'll make this as brief as possible because this game does absolutely nothing for me. The thing about Gruden that I find fascinating is that if I was building any kind of sports team, basically of any type, obviously I would consider talent important and like work ethic and ability to develop and all that kind of stuff. But I would definitely want at some point to bring in young players and develop them into my system so that I could get them early in their career and take advantage of the primes of their career. And the stats I saw on Gruden was that after they traded Mack, the average age of their starting lineup was like the oldest in 10 years. And the previous oldest age was his Tampa Bay team like 10 years ago. But just like the idea that someone would approach, especially a sport as like physically absolutely brutal as football, with the idea that players need to be acquired on the ends of their careers, just again, without the data to support this, just as like a hypothesis, seems like I don't even know if it passes like the laugh test in terms of being like a reasonable philosophy. So I mean, that would be my thoughts on him. So
he's trying to get Vontae Davis out of retirement, is what you're saying,
right?
You gotta add some experience to that.
Trying to get Rich Gannon out of retirement.
Rich Gannon is.
Yeah. Derek Carr settled down a little bit last week. I still thought he needed to make some plays in the second half till we could secure that win. Couldn't do it. Raiders now 0-2, Dolphins 2-0. If they had a pass rush, I would probably be biting on the live dog here. But instead, we'll take the over. Let's move on to Packers versus the Washington Redskins. Redskins at home for the second straight week. Packers first road game after two division wins. Not a win. A division win and a division tie. Victory snatched away from them with a questionable roughing the passer call against Andy's Minnesota Vikings last week. But two results, we'll say, in soccer terminology, two results in division. Now they had to get on the road to play the Redskins. The Redskins disappointed at home last week. I think that the Redskins are a better team than we saw against the Colts. I think that I'm willing to kind of hang that as an anomalous low performance from them, and they get back and perform closer to their baseline this week, which in my book as a home team would have them favored against this Packers team, where we see Aaron Rodgers still, I think, limited by his knee injury. Don't like the quotes I'm hearing from Rodgers. I don't like the amount of time he had to play out on the field last week. Give me the Redskins here on the money line at plus 129. Andy, can I talk you into a Redskins money line position, or am I nuts for fading Aaron Rodgers?
You might be nuts. I like the Redskins. Again, I'm trying to grade everything based on, what's happened previously. And the week one win, maybe not as impressive, just because Arizona might be worse than the Bills at this point. I'm not sure if they should have even scored in that game. And I think Indy is a decent team. I think Washington probably, like we talked about the clutch or whatever we talked about Sunday, and we kind of touched on it today. Like they were so terrible on third down, fourth down, and in the red zone. Just almost to the far end of a bell curve where it has to get better. They can't continue to do that. So I think it'll be a good game. I'm not sure how I feel about fading Aaron Rodgers. He didn't seem that immobile. I mean, maybe a flat spot after, winning or not winning against the Vikings. It could be a flat spot, but Aaron Rodgers doesn't really do flat spots. He wants to win every game. He ran a few times. Once he started running the ball, I'm like, well, he's fine. His knee is fine. So I'm not going to get in his way. I don't lean Green Bay either. I think this is probably a coin toss game on the road, and I'm going to just stay clear and let you do whatever you're doing.
Okay. Well, interestingly enough, we've seen a good amount of money come in on the under. Don't know if I can really explain that. Didn't really look particularly high to me, 47.5. But sure enough, it's gotten hit a little bit hard. It's down to 45.5. You got a theory on that, Lucky?
Wow, I also find that interesting. The one thing that stood out to me about this game, I talked about the Redskins already in terms of when we talked about the Colts and their game last week. One of the things that stood out to me was the Redskins' total and complete inability to run the ball effectively, and how that seems to be, I would imagine that's going to be a season-long thing. Like, I don't think Adrian Peterson is suddenly going to become much better than he is, even though apparently he had that incredible workout that apparently made them sign him, and ran pretty effectively against Arizona. I don't know. I feel like I left that game. That was sort of my strongest opinion about either team was if the Redskins are going to run the ball for 1 yard on first and second down, and Alex Smith is going to have 3rd and 8, he's probably one of the quarterbacks I would least want to have on 3rd and 8 in the entire league. So, I think that in terms of just this game specifically, the line makes a lot of sense to me. I think, having the teams rated like this is actually pretty appropriate. Maybe there is like a little bit of value on the Redskins. I feel like it's probably just really hard to power rate the current version of Aaron Rodgers compared to other versions of Aaron Rodgers, I would imagine.
Fair point.
If I was an odds maker, but yeah, I mean the total, no opinion, but I do think, Washington became like the hot team after week 1, but I think the hot team maybe can't run the ball whatsoever.
Mm-hmm. Well, fingers crossed that can't run the ball. They see the tape from last week. They adjust their approach so that they have run a more modern offense. Did not love the adjustments that they made between weeks 1 and weeks 2 on their offensive approach whatsoever. That said, let's talk about a team that that Andy's going to see in person. This was a scratch off. I ran the model. I didn't really make any adjustments. I get 27-13 Minnesota. You got 3 points of line value in the Bills. I want nothing to do with this pass. You got feeling, what are your expectations for the Vikings this weekend, Andy? Do you want to see them just utterly thump this squad and Josh Allen on the road, or do you want to see a competitive game?
No, I just want to get drunk. We're taking the party bus. Up to I live like an hour and a half from the Twin Cities, so it is nice. One of the local bars set up a deal with the party bus and the tickets and everything. They'll drive you up there, stop at some bars. So I'm not going to bet this game because I want to enjoy it, and I'm already going to be stressed enough between bets and, to a lesser extent, DFS and fantasy. I don't enjoy going to NFL games. There's too much going on at noon for me to be in a stadium because I feel stupid just sitting on my phone checking everything all the time. So it'll just be setting a lot of alerts, I guess, and hopefully I can enjoy the game. But yeah, we're gonna start drinking at 7. So watch out for Andy live tweeting the game. Shit could be interesting. I have no interest in backing the Bills. They have every ability to lose by 35 to 42 points. I'm not going to take the 17, and I'm not a guy that lays 17 points, even on a home team that's power ranked towards the top against an away team that's power ranked towards the bottom. Full pass, maybe a prop just because I'll be there.
Any contrarian angle presenting itself for you, Lucky?
First of all, I just like to say I got like a mental image of Andy when he was describing his pregame ritual, like Bill's Mafia, and just Andy with like his shirt off, jumping through like a plywood table, and like just doing all sorts of unseemly things that we've seen Bills fans do. Hopefully, you mingle with some of those guys when you're there.
It's not crazy. He is like that in person.
The question I wrote down for this game, and then I'll get into the contrarian angle, is when was the last time I saw an NFL team plus 875 on the money line? That would be question number one.
I think I know when I bet you it was like.
Was it Giants. That Jags Broncos game? Was it that?
I think I was going to guess it was the Giants last year in Denver. I don't know if do you remember that game?
God!
I do remember that. Was that a Monday night?
Maybe Sunday night.
Sunday night, Sunday night. I think, and the Giants won, didn't they?
They won outright, and it was they for some reason they were like 17-point dogs. I feel like, but that was maybe the
875. I'm just saying, like what is the implied percent of 875? I don't have my calculator in front of me. That'd be really wild. I wonder what that.
Oh man.
What their percentage chance of winning is.
I think it's like 11%, 12%. Yeah.
I mean, that's
incredible.
In an NFL game, that is absolutely incredible. Anyway, just to keep it moving.
Yeah, it just 1 divided by the decimal odds is
so 10.2%. Yeah.
10.2.
So I think
if anybody can do it, it's my Minnesota Vikings.
I think that my contrarian angle here is something I still like doing with NFL games, even though I don't play a lot of them, which is this is like a trend I stumbled upon when I was just like running different angles over and over and over and over again to try to find edges. And I mean, when you do that, 99.9% of the things you run come back as like complete and utter noise. But I ended up having an idea for something that has ended up working out really well. And when back tested, actually works out really well. So I think I talked about this a little bit last year when I was on, but the name that I gave this trend is expectation of non-weather related ass game. So
the ass game under.
Yeah. The ass game under, yeah.
No, well, it's the ass game over.
It's the ass game over.
Because it's the expectation of an under. So basically the criteria that allow this to work are basically it's a game that takes place on Sunday. So basically it includes it basically excludes like the wacky Thursday travel spots that can create awkward totals and awkward scoring games, especially. So it's a Sunday game, 2 teams not in the same division, because I think the argument could be that they know each other well enough that it stays under because their tendencies are scripted. So it's 2 teams not from the same division, and the total is 42 or less, with weather conditions ideal. And so basically the thought behind this is that the general consensus market opinion about either the 2 quarterbacks or the 2 offenses in general that are playing is so poor that the total drops into a range that is usually reserved for excellent defenses or very poor weather conditions, even though none of those things exist. And when it drops into that range, it actually becomes valuable. So if you backtest this for the last 10 years, it comes up at 61%, which is pretty amazing. It's had 1 non-profitable season the last decade. So I would invite, I'll take like a BetLab screenshot at some point in the next week or so, maybe, and put it up just so people can kind of get a handle on. It's like wind under 9 miles per hour, temperature above like 40 degrees or something. So it's basically like, as long as there aren't crazy weather conditions in play, then you fire away basically with the best number you can find. So the crazy thing about this game, and then Bears Cardinals, which I'll say my piece on right now, is that both this is actually the first week I can remember in which I've been paying attention where there are 2 games in domes with totals 41 or less, which is like something you just so rarely see. Some of that is because of teams that play in domes. Like obviously New Orleans plays in the dome, they score a lot of points. Atlanta plays in the dome, they score a lot of points. But just the sort of confluence of events that has created these totals, to me, like screams betting over on both of them, actually. So they're totals that you immediately look at and you go, my God, how are there ever going to be 41 points scored in the Bills-Vikings game? And this was a series of events which you actually could have also used last week with the Bills-Chargers game, where it was like, my God, how could there have been 42 points scored in that game? And the reason there could be 42 points is that the Chargers can score 42 points. That's how it could happen. So, but I think that just as like a trend, this is something that I always have enjoyed playing along with, that has been successful. Will it continue to be successful? Who knows? But just as a pure contrarian here, Bills Vikings over 41. And then when you guys end up talking about Bears Cardinals, you can mark me down for over 38 minus 105 for everything. So
I love it. That's good. We'll
I can't believe I forgot about
the ass over. I know, I did too. I forgot about the ass game over. The ass man. Okay, let's talk about maybe one of the more compelling games of the week then. And I'll give you my contrarian angle, which is not as well founded and definitely doesn't have a BetLab screenshot associated with it. But the Niners head out to KC to play the Chiefs. Chiefs' first home game. They are 2-0, both wins on the road against the Chargers and against the Steelers. Impressive wins, no doubt. Pat Mahomes on pace for 72 touchdowns. I'm sure that'll keep up. Jimmy Garoppolo and company, they won last week, but it sure as hell felt like that game was in the balance a lot more closely than it ought to have been. I'm not really interested in taking a side here. I think the line was relatively tight. Maybe I would have thought it should have been like around KC -4 or -6-ish or something. 6.5 or 7 seems like an awful lot of points for two teams that are pretty close skill-wise, I think, across the board. But this total, I tried every which way I could to cap it to get it up to 56 points, and I just can't do it. It's too many points for me in this one. I think you are talking about competent players on the defensive side of the football for the San Francisco 49ers that are going to keep the Chiefs under 30. We still have a lot to see with Jimmy G and putting up like a truly efficient game. So I'm capping this one at 27-23, 50 points. So give me under 56 here. Feels gross. 56 is this is it's maybe it's the sucker bet of the week. I don't really know, but under 56 for me in this one. Andy, how do you approach Niners Chiefs?
I have a small lean on the Niners. I think the Chargers injuries and the just Pittsburgh's defense in general. And I'm not to take away from Mahomes and all the weapons and the scheme, but I think this will probably be the best defense the Chiefs have faced, and yet the total's that high. And then, with the Jimmy G thing, I do lean under, but I'm not going to get in the way of that freight train. I mean, you can lean under all you want. You don't need to get silly with it, and no disrespect to your bet, but I'm just too scared to get in the way of that when it's going to be like 28-14 at half, and I'm going to be pissed. So I'm staying away from that. I like where you're going. Everything leads that way. I just can't bet it. I do think I like San Francisco plus the points. I think, again, the best defense they're going to face. I think they can score. Obviously, Kansas City's defense is nothing to write home about. So I think they might hang with them. But again, in a high-scoring game where it's lined with the variance, I'm probably just going to pass on this one completely. Yeah, just enjoy it.
Chance that Arrowhead is absolutely rocking too. This is
it'll be it's always a tough place to play.
Have you caught any wind of this DFS chatter that's been going on this week, Lockie, with people kind of making a case that Mahomes is going to regress? And I don't know, even a broader question, did you see this coming?
I did not see this coming whatsoever. I watched Mahomes a little bit in college. He actually got the starting job in like a really weird way too, where the starter got hurt and Mahomes ended up playing and then like basically never relinquished the role and stuff like that. I mean, Texas Tech always has like crazy ass quarterback stories because they keep like 4 on their roster who can all play and they just interchange them. But I didn't think this was going to happen. I think this game is lined well enough that I don't want to bet anything. The one thing I would just point out is like you can already kind of see the power rating adjustment that's taken place or the spread adjustment because the Vikings were 6 at home against the Niners in week 1, and now the Chiefs are 6.5 against the Niners in week 3 at home. So like we've already I don't think that I would imagine not a huge adjustment has been made to the Niners based on their results. So that kind of gives you an idea of like how odds makers have interpreted like Mahomes and how to rate the Chiefs in order to get equal action. I would call it a significant bump. So
we were expecting to see KC -3 based on the preseason numbers.
Right. So that's not surprising to me. I think rating these teams as even would be a mistake at this point. I'm not saying they're making an incorrect adjustment. I just think it's really interesting in just 2 weeks what we've already seen.
Okay. Well, let's go under here. This has the potential to be pretty uncomfortable.
Yeah, best of luck with it, by the way.
But
We'll pray for some wind.
I know. So far, the highest total of the week has sailed over 2 weeks in a row. So, not feeling great about that. Let's talk about another one that I'm not feeling great about, but sometimes those bets are the ones that really you relish at the end of the week.
Yeah, plug your nose. Just do it.
I played the under in the Rams Chargers. Again, like I tried to cap this in a way that I got close to 40. The total line total is 48. I tried to cap this where I got close, and I just can't do it. I think the Rams defense is legit. I think the Chargers, they have an impressive offensive scheme, but it's not going to be. This is going to be a competitive game that I think you're going to see relatively efficient red zone defense out of both of these squads. Still probably not going to see Joey Bosa, which stinks, but you have I think a relatively competitive game here with the Chargers and the Rams. I took under 47.5. Got it at plus 104. I'm looking for like a 41-point game here, and it doesn't feel great. Andy, you gonna attack a side or a total here in this one?
Ooh,
I know you've been hammering. You've been going bananas on the Chargers team total over. Is this a week you stay away going against this mighty Rams defense?
Better defense. It's a weird thing. Like, do you want to call it a road game? Because is it their second straight road week, kind of, for the Chargers?
It is, but yeah,
just driving across town, and
what is
being at home?
Yeah.
What's being at home?
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway?
I got bad news for the Chargers. They're going to have 16 consecutive road games this year.
Yeah, like that's something you got to put that into context in that situation. Like, is it really a road game for them? I think they'll put up points, but yeah, this will be the first big test for them as far as a good defense. Obviously, the Chiefs' defense is just out there to do something when Mahomes catches his breath, and what they did last week too. They put up 28 in a hurry. That's just how it's going to be when they play a lower end defense. It's going to be much closer. I think I like your angle there, especially if the Chargers defense starts to pick up a little steam. They were supposed to be a really good unit, but injuries has kind of ravaged them.
Derwin James is playing out of his mind.
Oh yeah, that was great that fell to him. He probably should have been in. Probably should have been in a
Tampa. Yeah,
Tampa's probably.
Tampa
everybody thought he'd go to Tampa.
Yeah, they desperately needed him. Right.
Yeah, they needed him. They're 2-0, but yeah, this is a stay away game for me. I might be looking for some live. I do like your under. You're under on this, right? Is that what you said?
Yeah, I'm under 47.5 plus 104.
I think if we see an early score, this would be a good one for a live under.
Ooh, that's an interesting look. Lockie, you're a McVay guy. He cashed a big ticket for you last year. Do you think that the market has overreacted, making Rams the NFC favorite?
Oh, it's funny. I was actually going to go in that direction. So good. That's some great hosting. So I think that
that's the synergy we bring to this podcast.
Right. Exactly. I was staring at the odds board a little bit, and I'm going to say something that simultaneously will make you say like, well, duh. And that's interesting. So the Chargers are definitely by far the best team that is a significant underdog on Sunday. Like of all the teams that are like plus 200 or better money line, they're not even close the most talented. I think you could make it interesting. I think you could make an right, exactly. And then Wales thinking like, duh, of course they're playing the Rams. So, but like, I think that it's at least possible that the first 2 weeks of Rams results have stretched this too far. I think that's possible. I think the Rams are possibly being overrated right now. The Chargers generally not a team I think anyone's interested in backing in a lot of situations, just because of how much they've underachieved compared to the talent that they have. But I keep staring at Chargers plus 255, and it at least it kind of makes sense to me as having some value. And unfortunately, I won't be able to articulate that much more clearly right now because I just noticed it. But I do think it's possible that the Rams' first 2 weeks of results have. I mean, isn't that possible that they've stretched this a little more than is perhaps, accurate given
Yeah, we've made that
Rams
point about
competition, basically.
Yeah, the Bills. Anybody who's played the Bills or the Cardinals, or maybe even the Giants at this point, like those aren't good wins. Those are
Right. Yeah, Raiders week 1 with John Gruden, like brand new systems everywhere.
Yep.
Like,
yep.
That second half. Yeah, it was the coaching mismatch of the decade.
Yep. I'll tell you this. I'll add to this why that's a good look. The Rams don't really have home field advantage in the Coliseum. The place sucks. Nobody goes. It's hot. They don't really have, it's not the kind of surface that, lends to their skill set really. And we've seen a lot of kind of so-so games out of the Rams in the Coliseum. So, it's not the type of place that's producing your average home field adjustment. So yeah, there's definitely value in that. I think that's a great jumping off point there.
Quick follow-up question. When you model games or whatever, are you putting in a flat 3 for everybody, or
No.
Is this a situation where you're putting in much less than that?
I put in less.
This is
than
the
that.
Lowest, I think.
Chargers.
Oh no! That's what I meant. The Chargers are the lowest.
Yeah, Rams is close though. In my opinion, home field advantage. It depends on two things, and I don't have tons of numbers to back this up, but one is, are you specifically built for your home setting, which a team like the Falcons and the Saints are, right? Like they're built to thrive on the fast surface in controlled environment. And then flip side of that is like a team like the Bears, they're built to, thrive on long grass and cold weather,
Maybe the Rams are built to thrive when no one cares. Maybe that's
Worked for them last year.
Yeah.
Just a lot of indifferent personalities that thrive in all conditions,
Yeah, that could be. Yeah. That could be. Everybody shows up and wants to see a soccer game, and they're like, "Why are they playing football?"
We're slotting.
But yeah, so one is, to me, I think it matters a lot, like how your team's constructed relative to your stadium, and then two, are you good enough to take advantage of the factors that all kind of play, right? Like, I wouldn't have given the Browns much of a home field advantage over the last handful of years because, even, the stuff like the noise, stuff like the weather, stuff like the other team, being a little bit tired from travel, like they didn't take advantage of those things. Like they didn't have a scheme, they didn't have a game plan that really made the most of, anything that you would expect from like what is home field advantage, so if you're a good team and you're constructed to do well in your home stadium, I give you a bigger bump than 3, and vice versa.
Interesting.
Let's talk about I like your look on the Chargers. I might sprinkle a little money line on that, and I'll let you know how that goes. Let's talk about I don't really want to talk about Cowboys Seahawks. This is another
that's such a ishy game.
Skip this.
Like whoever wins that game, it's not going to be like, oh, I'm impressed with them. I
actually capped the Cowboys as winners in this one, but I just can't do it. It's Seattle's home opener. Cowboys got an ugly win against the Giants. Cowboys defense is impressive. Seattle's defense is, it looked pretty suspect when they needed some key stops against the Bears. But they can rush the passer. We haven't seen Dak Prescott look particularly good. There's no weapons in Dallas. They can't necessarily take advantage of the holes in the Seattle secondary. So there's just lots of red flags on this one to stay away. Lockie, did you have any questions or any interest in this game?
I had absolutely no interest in this game whatsoever. I would be curious, like home field adjustment wise. I wonder like what ends up happening with Seattle as all this stuff, as this sort of ball unwinds and everybody goes their separate ways. I mean,
Great
Carroll,
question.
like I don't know what Carroll's contract situation is. I have to imagine, he's in his last couple of years with the team for sure. They'll definitely want like a lot of changeover. Obviously, like all their defensive players have sort of matriculated outwards. Like, I'd be really curious what ends up happening to their home field advantage as a result of that. Like, is it actually legitimately affected by the fact that the team will now be terrible or at least mediocre for a number of years? I think that would be like a really interesting thing to track.
Yeah.
We'll see if those 12s are loyal, and if it's a fair weather fan community, because there are fan bases like that where they're not out when the team is not good.
Yeah. That's right. And I mean, Seattle gains its home field advantage, in my opinion, because of the way the stadium was constructed and the way it amplifies noise on the field. And if you have a pass rush that's going to take advantage of that, they're going to try to get an early jump on the snap count, and the offensive line for the visiting team is going off of they're not counting on being able to hear the snap count. You get an advantage out of that for sure, but they don't really have the horses in Seattle. Oh, there's a couple of decent pass rush pieces in Seattle. I think people are underselling some of the D line pieces in Seattle. But without KJ, I'm not expecting to see KJ Wright and Bobby Wagner. But I guess if they play, then I would probably flip the expected winner here and expect Seattle.
Script.
Yeah, flip the script and expect Seattle to win by 3 or something dumb. But this is a stay away. Let's talk about the primetime game, where, again, I took a pretty hold-your-nose position. I cannot even believe I'm going to talk through this because
don't say Detroit. Don't do it.
I did. I took Detroit plus 6.5 at plus 102. I backed Matt Patricia and a hobbled Matt Stafford and a garbage Lions defense against the GOAT on Sunday Night Football. I feel gross about this, but
disgust me.
I know. I feel gross about this. I think the Patriots win. I think it's closer than 6.5. I don't really know what else to tell you. It's a bad situation for the Patriots. They had to play Miami next week in a much more meaningful game. This is their second week in a row on the road. This is the Patriots' fourth week on the road out of 5. They have done a lot of traveling. They are missing a lot of pieces on offense. To a degree, the Jaguars put together a nice blueprint for Detroit although I'm not sure Patricia really needed to know, hey, the blueprint to stop the Patriots is to stop Gronk. But nonetheless, they saw it work with the way that Jacksonville bodied Gronk. The Lions have safeties. The Lions can turn the ball over. If they can, we're not seeing a particularly efficient or effective Tom Brady through 2 weeks. He looks a little rusty. He looks a little uncomfortable with his receivers. There's a little unease on the sidelines on offense. This could very easily get out of hand. This could be a Patriots blowout. I'm sad that I missed the opener on the over. God knows what intern got fired for hanging a 45.5 on the opener at Pinnacle. But that guy definitely got canned. It's bet up to 51.5. This is the first time I can remember seeing a 6-point move on a total this season. And I'm sad I missed that because I'm capping this at about 49 points. Patriots defense, I think we saw the real defense last week against the Jaguars. And I don't know, here's my working theory on the Patriots defense. If they're playing a team with a bad offensive line, they can get pressure, they can disrupt, they can get teams off the field on third down. If they're playing a team with a decent to good offensive line, they cannot. And so I think this is like a Jekyll and Hyde Patriots defense. I think you're talking about a very desperate 0-2 Lions team. I was impressed that the Lions didn't outright quit on Patricia last week in San Francisco. The opportunity was there. They were down in the second half.
It felt like that was where it was headed.
It felt like that was where it was headed, but they didn't. They didn't do it. They didn't do it. So there's a little fight left in this team. There's a little glimmer of hope of we're going to salvage our 2018 season. Hopefully that gets me to a cover here. Keep this game inside a touchdown. This is probably the last time I'm fading the Patriots for a good long while, and hopefully it's not just an utter ass kicking. But we'll see how this goes. Lockie, am I bananas, or did I make a strong case there?
No, I mean, you made a pretty strong case. I think I actually was a little surprised that the number was this low. I thought the Patriots would still get more credit, but I guess, when my finger is not as much on the pulse of correct odds making in the NFL as it has been in past years. But it's funny that you bring up the over. I did kind of get wind of that same story and just the rate at which the total went up. And the funny thing is I remember a friend told me the story and I said, well, wait, what's the total at right now? And he goes, like 51. And I go, oh, really? 51? I kind of like the over. And I think that I think the Patriots' defense's flaws are being masked a little bit by who they played in the first 2 weeks. When you talk about both Houston and Fournette-less Jacksonville, and I think that like Detroit's offense is probably significantly better than both of those offenses, or at least marginally better. So I would actually still lean over at these numbers. I think that's more based on a sort of a lukewarm Patriots fan who's just enjoyed way too much success in my entire life. I feel like I generally have a pretty good read on the team and what they're capable of. And to me, it still seems a little low. So I guess that would just be my opinion there.
It's crazy interesting you mentioned about the spread. We were expecting in the offseason to see Patriots -4, and they opened it up Patriots -6 or -7. I guess they opened it -7. Detroit took a little money early.
7 is what I would have expected. Like 7.5. I would have expeced. I would have felt like market sentiment on Detroit was like bottomed out almost.
Yeah. So Andy, the guys in Vegas who like go to the roulette tables, and they like watch for a table to hit like 10 blacks in a row, and then they walk over and bet, and they walk over and bet red, and then like
the absolute best.
Here comes the streak breaker.
The guy in his one black chip. Yeah.
Betting Detroit is exactly that, because the against the spread and straight up trends for the Patriots off a loss in the Belichick-Brady era are stupid. They are utterly ridiculous. I am literally walking over to the table to try to break the streak here. Are
there a lot of Brady primetime trends too? Aren't there like some of those too?
Yeah.
Those always used to be a big deal, I think.
Oh yeah. I mean, hold on to your butts. Like what you're going to see people trend analysis on this particular game in that dead zone between the 4:00 games and the primetime game. Like it's going to be ridiculous, because I mean, if it already hasn't gotten to a deafening roar about how
not like any of it's predictive or anything, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean it is.
Trends don't have to be predictive to get retweets.
Right. Sure.
That is how that
we learned
works.
one thing from the legalized culture of gambling. It's that something definitely does not have to be predictive to get retweets. So.
Yeah.
So,
Andy,
no, you don't. I hate it. Look, I mean, you say, the blueprint is to take away Gronk. Well, I guess maybe if the Lions can borrow some of the Jaguars defenders, because that defense is nowhere. I seen Jimmy G do things against the defense. Brady and Gronk all day long. It's going to be disgusting. I hate to just be so dismissive of a game, but man, that they had the game plan. You're right. They had it figured out. The Jags have the personnel. They have the scheme to do that. I don't think Detroit can. I think you're going to see a lot more of like what we saw in the first half of week 1 against the Texans, where they just methodically go down the field with Gronkowski and score a few touchdowns, 35-20.
Well, hopefully Glover Quinn can do a damn good Jalen Ramsey impression for me. And Darius Slay, is he healthy? God, I hope he's healthy. If they're missing any play pieces in the secondary, I'm screwed here. Diggs, Slay, Quinn, play your best game, boys.
I guess I will say the Patriots don't give a shit. They'll leave the back door wide open. They'll let you score late. Like that almost happened week 1. I guess week 1 was a little different because they were within a touchdown there. But
I'm gonna retweet that right now. Patriots don't give a fuck. They leave the back door open.
They'll leave that back door open.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not like a spread covering machine on these bigger numbers. They win. They just want that win. And it is, I will a point to back you up a little. It is still the extended preseason for Bill and Tom. So
that's true.
Maybe
they
do have that.
That's true. Okay. Well, sad that I don't just get to play over 45.5 and chill on this one. That'd have been nice. That would have been nice. Patriots are missing a couple of pieces in the defense. I'll mention Patrick Chung's going to be out. You got Trey Flowers is probably going to be questionable. It's a gross game. I feel gross betting it, but here we are. Let's wrap it. Great job, guys. This was a super fun pod. Lucky you are as spectacular a guest as I remembered. I really appreciate all your insight on the college football stuff you gave us at the beginning there. I was kind of uninterested in college football to this point in the season just because I focus so much on NFL and the games really haven't interested me that much. But I went from like a 2 to a 9 just listening to you talk about it.
What do you do on Saturdays?
Oh, dude, are you kidding? It's fall in Southern California. It's so beautiful. This is the best time of year to be outside on a Saturday.
Surfing?
I want to put you in that commercial with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Come to California.
Oh, it's the best, man. It is the best. Hiking, wine tasting, surfing, everything at your fingertips around here.
I can watch college football and drink wine. You just try and stop me
on Saturday. Yeah. Well, you're setting the table for me for my October. It's going to be a lot of that, so I'm excited. But thank you again for all your insight. This was a ton of fun. We'll be reaching out to you for sure.
At Lockie Lockerson, if you don't already follow him, which I guess seems kind of unlikely, but at Lockie Lockerson on Twitter. He writes for Action Network. There's a lot of good articles. There's a lot of shitty articles out there that get put on. I see a lot of shitty articles on Twitter. I click and read some of them and I regret it, but Lockie's a good writer, and it's actually useful information, which there's a difference there too, because there's a lot of good writers that just write a lot of fluff pieces, but I do like your stuff. I like your Heisman thing. So
wow.
Hopefully, I'm tearing up a little here, but no, I do like your writing. So everybody go check that out, and LockieLockerson.com.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. Yeah. So can I do my 30 seconds of hype for real quick? Yeah, so
hype it up.
Basically, college football is like, A1, A2, A3 for me this time of year. I've pivoted almost entirely to that sport at the expense of the NFL. So if you go to my site or read me on Action Network, basically my goal is to kind of offer, whether it's in written form or through DM or podcast or anything, thoughts on basically every single game, however many games we have per week. Usually it's like 60, 65. If every team's playing, I guess if you do open weeks, like 55, 60, it's a lot of games, but the work is incredibly fun. And I think, the work has yielded 500 results so far. I think I'm like one game over 500 in the game thoughts that I've released, but a lot of an extraordinary amount of noon plays this week. Somehow that came together. So an opportunity to get some really good numbers and have a lot of fun. So check out all this stuff.
I love it. Thanks again, Lockie. Best of luck this weekend. Best of luck this season, and we'll circle back on you as we get into crunch time of college football and NFL.
Thanks, guys. It was a lot of fun.
All right. Take it easy.
Welcome, everybody, to the MMQB Gambling Podcast. I'm your host. Not really a host. I'm a co-host, but I have to intro, so I'll say host. Jimmy Traina, with my co-hosts, senior editor of MMQB, Gary Gramling, his brother, managing editor of the DRF Sports Forum, Scott Gramling, week 2 in the NFL. I went 2-1-1 in my best bets last week. Gentlemen, how'd you guys do?
3-1 for me. And, Gare?
2-2. Even Steven.
We all, look, I mean, you always have to throw the caveats in. We all had the Giants, right? And if they just, what were they, about a foot short of that 2-point conversion, would have covered or would have pushed. We got it at 3.
And this is a gambling podcast, so we got to stick to the lines and all that. But NFL coaches still have no clue about when to go for 2 points. There was no way they should have went for 2 there.
We're so angry about that, Jimmy.
Because if you missed the 2, you're down 5. Jacksonville comes down, kicks a field goal. Now you're down 8. You have to get a touchdown on 2 points. Just kick the extra point. Go down 4. There's 10 minutes left in the game. NFL coach is still clueless with the 2-point conversion.
I would have gone for 2.
Clueless.
But I wouldn't have handed the ball to the guy who was out of breath after just running 80 yards or whatever it was for. I know it was an 80-yard touchdown, but the amount of yards he ran to get into the end zone, I don't think you just hand it to the guy in the 2-point conversion. Anyway, cost me from a perfect week, but hey, we're moving on.
So I had winners with the Rams and Bears, push with the Broncos, lost the Giants. What were your picks, Scott?
I had the Rams, Panthers, and as half the
Chiefs.
free world knows, I loved the Chiefs.
And Gary, what did you have last week?
Oh gosh, let's get the Cardinals out of the way and never speak of it again. I had the Panthers and the I lost the Giants too. I had the Panthers as a winner, and who was my other one? That was
Giants.
The Rams. Sorry, yes, the Rams. Yep.
If you go back into the archives, the 2 teams Gary was on in the preseason were Arizona and Detroit. But we'll skip that. We'll get right to the week 2 lines.
I'm jumping off one bandwagon, and it's not the Lions.
All right.
Sticking with the Lions for now.
That's a tease for the show. Speaking of the show, this is the MMQB Gambling Podcast. We're here every Friday. MMQB, though, their feed has podcasts every day of the week except for Tuesday. You can check them out on themmqb.com, Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. So check out all of the NFL podcasts we have on SI.com throughout the week. And I, of course, have the SI Media podcast every Thursday. This week's guest is Gus Johnson, and it was a very good interview, so check all that out.
They're all very good interviews. You do a great job.
They're not all good. They're not all good. I rarely come away like, that was really good. Gus was really good, I have to say.
You pull some good guests, Jimmy.
I try.
You pull some good guests.
I try. So
Who doesn't love talking to this guy?
So podcasts all over SI.com. Gary's on a bunch of them, and probably on all of them talking about the Cardinal Lion NFC title games that he expects this season.
Monday morning, I was just softly weeping about the Cardinals.
All right, week 1 in the books. Week 2 is here, and this is, I think, always the trickiest week of the betting season because
you said that last week, Jimmy.
No. Week 1, you like to lay low to see what the teams are doing. Week 2, though, is all about the overreaction to week 1.
The false confidence,
Yes. And you throw out everything you thought before week 1, all based on what you saw last week.
No, we throw out everything that Gary thought before week 1, and the rest of us move on.
I will mention Arizona and Detroit about 5,000 times in the next 40 minutes. All right, let's get it going. Week 2 in the NFL, we started off with the Redskins. Blasted Gary's Arizona Cardinals last week, giving 6 points at home to the Colts. Big total here, 47.5. Gary, I'll let you get it rolling since I keep teasing you about Arizona and Detroit. Washington -6 versus Indy.
Yeah, not crazy about this one. I'm curious to see the game flow here. I mean, Alex Smith is a game flow dependent quarterback. If they have to play from behind at any point, they're going to be in some trouble. I mean, look, the Colts aren't a defensive juggernaut, but you put Andrew Luck out there against what's an interesting but sort of mismatched Redskins defense, I'd say. I wouldn't be surprised if the Colts jumped, maybe 10 points in the first quarter type of thing. I could see that scenario. Like I said, I'm not crazy about it, but with the 6-point spread, I'll take the Colts in the points.
And Adrian Peterson, reborn in Washington after week 1. There's an overreaction people I think are going to have. Scott, I'm sorry. What are your thoughts?
I'm glad we're starting with this game. I thought this was the hardest game on the card to pick. I'm not sure which way it'll go. Therefore, I will take the points. Don't love it. It's a game I'm staying away from. I think there's still too much uncertainty because of the amount of turnover for both teams in the offseason, and I do count Andrew Luck as turnover. I know he's been their quarterback for several years, but because he didn't play last year, let's see if he's for. That was kind of a fluky game a little bit to a degree with the Bengals last week, so I'm taking a wait-and-see approach with these two teams, staying away from it. If I had to take it, I'd take the Colts because of the points.
The line here is high with 6, but I thought the Colts were one of the worst teams in football before the season started on our podcast, which you can find in the archives where we did over-unders for the season. I said under 7.5 even if Andrew Luck is healthy. So I think the Redskins win the game, whether they cover. Like you guys, I don't know about the line. 6 is high, but I don't think the Colts are very good at all. So let's go on to the second game, and it's one of the better games of the week. Carolina, big win against the Cowboys at home last week. They visit the Falcons. Falcons at home giving 5.5, total 44.5. Scott, what do you got?
Love the Falcons. I absolutely love the Falcons in this one. Falcons, this is a head-to-head series that has been dominated by the home team in recent seasons, and you look at the Falcons and what they've done against the Panthers, 8-2 at home in the last 10 between these division rivals. 7 of those 8 victories have been by 7 or more points, so I'm not afraid of laying the points here. That includes victories by 15 and by 12 the last 2 seasons. I know I was all over the Panthers last week, and I was all over the Panthers last week because of the matchup, because the weakness of the Panthers is their secondary. We talked about it on the show last week. Dallas did not have the personnel to hurt the Panthers where they're most weak, which is in the secondary. Atlanta does. Julio Jones, last 6 games against the Panthers, has averaged 137.3 receiving yards. I think this is a case where the Falcons will hurt the weakness of the Panthers, which is the secondary. I think the Falcons look so bad in the Thursday night opener offensively. I think there's going to be some overreaction there to them. And I just think that having the extra 3 days to rest is going to be a key here. Now, I think naysayers might say Deion Jones is out, Keanu Neal is out. The defense is still fast, and I don't think Carolina has the kind of offense that can hurt Atlanta's defense. Atlanta's defense is still solid, not as solid as it was going into the season because they lost to those 2 guys, but I love this game. I love the Panthers laying the points, and
the Falcons.
I'm sorry. I love the Falcons laying the points against the Panthers. Thanks for correcting me there. And I just think it's a great pick, and I also do like when it all matches up. Taking in week 2, an 0-1 team going against a 1-0 team, and this matches up here. Falcons are the better team. They perform better at home in recent years against the Panthers. There's just so many reasons to back the Falcons in this one.
Gary?
Yeah, I actually I had the Falcons until Deion Jones went down. I switched over to the Panthers.
So you're gonna say I had the Falcons until I just heard all that. Now I'm switching over.
No. I'm going Carolina here. Those injuries terrify me. Deion Jones and Keanu Neal. I mean, that is essentially the heart of your defense, especially your run defense with the undersized defensive line they have there. Panthers want to run the ball. We'll see. I mean, it was a lot of bells and whistles with the option game in week 1, and once that stuff's on tape, it becomes less effective. But yeah, on top of that, look, I think Matt Ryan is going to be fine. I think Thursday night was an aberration there, but I don't know. I don't know if they're ready to pick it up right now. I think the Falcons, maybe this is one of those games. Panthers grind it out a little bit. Maybe Falcons win by a field goal in the end. I thought the 5.5 point spread was too much for me, though.
I'm right there with you. I think that line is high, 5.5. Evenly matched teams here. Would I bet this game? You'll have to wait for the best bets, but I love getting 5.5 with a good Carolina team. And I'm at the point now where I might bet against the Falcons just based on their offensive coordinator, because Steve Sarkisian is completely lost now in the red zone. He had a year to fix it and didn't fix it, as we saw in the opener against the Eagles.
You guys are going to regret this. I'm just telling you.
No, I didn't say I was betting it. Right. I'm just saying.
No, you're going to regret not betting it the way that you should be betting.
Story of my life.
I was just saying, the 2 guys the Falcons have replacing Jones and Neal, I mean, they are incredibly small. They are they're sub-package all the time now. Panthers want to go big. They want to try and ram it down your throat. So we'll
big.
see.
Yeah.
That's a tall order for Duke Riley and DeMonte Casey, who's a 180-pound strong safety.
All right, next game on the board. I don't know if our producer extraordinaire Harry can play the trumpets. But we have some sad news. The Nathan Peterman era is over in Buffalo, and Josh Allen will get the start.
It might just be on hiatus. I mean, we thought it was over after the first half of the Chargers game last year.
It was over before it started, believe me.
It should have been over after 5 interceptions in the first half last year against the Chargers on the road. Let's be honest.
So Allen gets the start in Buffalo. The Bills are getting 7.5 points from the visiting Chargers as they come across the country after getting spanked by the Chiefs. Total in this one is 43.5. Gary.
Yeah, I'm going Chargers in this one. They were all right when they had to come east last year in those early games. I mean, they I want to pull it up real quick. Of course.
The one thing about the one thing is, I think that used to be a bigger factor than it is because now, I mean, these guys are on planes that you can't even, or hotels basically. The travel isn't that bad.
Teams do a much better job managing it than they used to do. And I've been to the league office where they build the schedule and they have all these signs all over the room about body clock and stuff like that. They came east. They beat the Giants for their first one last year. They hung with the Patriots. That was my favorite play of the year was Travis Benjamin running a punt into the end zone for a safety, which ended up costing them the cover in that game. And they took Jacksonville to overtime in a game that they botched on the special teams again, because that's what the Chargers do. In the end, look, I like Josh Allen as a prospect. I think he might be a superstar in 5 years. This Bills offense is not functional. They cannot do it. The only way they hang around in this game is something like fluky special teams plays, weird turnovers, stuff like that. Chargers will serve those up, but I'm not betting on that.
The Chargers played so poorly last week, and I mentioned it last week. Once again, Joey Bosa out. If they were playing a real team, that might concern me, but it is the Buffalo Bills and a rookie quarterback who I don't love as a prospect. But Scott, what do you got on this one?
Yeah, I don't like either side of this game. If I had to take it, I would take the Bills. It's just too many points to be laying on the road with a team I don't think is that good. And I won't go back into it. I went into it last week with the Chargers, and a mediocre team laying more than a touchdown on the road against any NFL team. And jury's still out on whether the Bills are an NFL team, but they do qualify as one at the moment. So. Staying away. If I had to take it, I'll take the Bills.
Total here, maybe it's me. Let's know what you guys think. 43.5 seems high for a team like Buffalo, which you don't expect to score many points at all. I mean, yes, I did say Bosa's out, but even how many points are the Bills going to put up this week?
If I had to bet, I'd take the over.
You would?
Yeah, I think it just feels to me like a very mistakey Keystone
Turnovers,
Cops type of games.
Six here and there.
And somebody's gonna be dropping punts and stuff like that. It's gonna be an ugly, sloppy game, but not in a defensive battle kind of way. No. I think in a more ineptness kind of way, and that often leads to overs because of a lot of mistakes where you should not be making mistakes.
Yeah, I mean, Allen is boom or bust. I think they score any touchdowns are going to be of the 40 or 50 yard variety, and it's probably going to be a lot of turnovers too.
All right, let's move on to a little division battle here. The Texans, 2-point favorites on the road at Tennessee. Who had a rough Sunday for about 87 hours in Miami. Total 44.5. Scott.
I'm going with the road favorite here. I am taking the Texans. It just, what a horrible first week for the Titans. I don't want to, I really try and stop myself from overreacting to the first week, but, not a lot of positives to take away from that game. And I just think when you look at the Texans and the kind of upside they have, I feel like, they've had the Titans' number in recent years, 11-3 against the spread in games played against Tennessee since the start of 2011. For those reasons, I'm leaning a little more than slightly toward the Texans here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going Texans. I'm going a little bit stronger in the Texans here. Like Scott said, terrible first week for the Titans, terrible summer for the Titans. A new coaching staff in there.
That's a good point.
Their entire defense has been It's not the devastating, it's not the headlines of, torn ACL, all this stuff. They had 4 draft picks. Their first 2 draft picks were both hurt all summer. They can't get on the field. Morgan's banged up. Arakpo's banged up. They are severely running behind on defense with where that defense should be.
And on offense, they lose Delaney Walker last week.
Delaney Walker out. Delaney Walker is
top weapon.
He's the focal point of that offense.
Which is a problem, but yeah, you're right.
Yes. They're in trouble here. Bill O'Brien's 7-4 against the spread versus division opponents on the road, and 4-0 as a road favorite as the Texans head coach. So I'll go Texans on this one. Nice little bounce back game for Houston as well after a sloppy start in New England.
This is probably the game the game I have the least amount of feel for all week. I think the Texans are better. But, given 2 on the road here, who knows how Tennessee's going to react. Gary's right. Injuries on defense, Delaney Walker out. We'd tell you Houston -2 is the play, but not a game I don't love. This game is very interesting to me. I think it definitely will be one of the more fun games Sunday afternoon. Chiefs with that high-powered offense. And I know Scott's chomping at the bit, but I'm going to drag this out. Keep him waiting. The Chiefs, the juggernaut, visiting the Steelers, who come off that tie with the Browns. Steelers -4.5, big total, 53. I'll tell you right now, I'm betting the over. Scott, we'll let you get it rolling because the Chiefs are your team. Go ahead.
Chiefs are my team. I don't love this spot, though. I really don't like this spot. I feel like back-to-back road games is a tough spot. Since the start of 2009, a Week 2 road team that had to play on the road in Week 1, 6-24 straight up. And the average money line on that was less than +110. So those are, and the average final score, the point differential was 7 points. So the home team won by an average of 7 points in those 30 games. I think this is a Steeler team that is tough at home, and I think it's a tough spot for a young quarterback. So because of that, and you know how much I love the Chiefs, I'm leaning ever so slightly to the Steelers on this
That's got to hurt.
I was gonna say.
You know what? You have to look at it week in and week out, and I do love the Chiefs. I loved them last week. I love them in the division because they dominate the division. But I think this is a very tough spot for them, and I do feel like the Steelers are going to. That was kind of an aberration, that game against the Browns. I feel like the Steelers sort of packed it in after 50 minutes and the bad fumbles at the end and all that. The Steelers should be every bit as good as the Chiefs, and with the home field advantage, it's a tough game. I wouldn't play the game. If I had to, I would go with the Steelers.
Gary?
Yeah, I'm going Steelers. I will say the only thing that gave me pause is the Joe Hayden injury, and I wonder if that sort of limits what the Steelers are going to be able to do defensively. Andy Benoit and I talked about this on the Deep Dive podcast.
What day of the week? Plug it properly.
There you go. It's coming out. No, it already came out.
Today's
Friday. It's already out.
Check it out.
It's a fast week when you get into the season.
Yeah, it's to beat Mahomes right now, I think what we have to do is it's disguise coverages, it's exotic blitzes and stuff like that. That's not what the Chargers do. That's not their defensive profile. That is what the Steelers can do. But with Hayden out, they can't cover. I mean, they can't cover Tyreek.
Sorry, you know how much I love Mahomes. I just love that. To beat Mahomes, it's so great because. We're already talking about him like that. In his 2 previous NFL starts.
In the larger picture, that's how you beat any young quarterback.
I hear you.
You show him new stuff, it's not the speed of the game that gets to young quarterbacks. It's the new stuff they see that they don't see in the preseason because no one does it there.
I just love the level of respect that he is getting. I don't have my Mahomes jersey yet, but it'll be soon.
No, it's and I mean, you guys remember last year after Ben threw the 5 picks against Jacksonville, and everyone said Ben's done. Ben was not done. Right. If you didn't follow the rest of the season after that. Look, it's going to be a beautiful day in Pittsburgh. Steelers are going to roll up points here. I'm a little bit nervous about the over, though, Jimmy, because what the Steelers have done the last 2 times they played the Chiefs, they get in those 3 receiver packages. The Chiefs have that sort of small front that they put up, and then the Steelers just ram the run down their throat.
Listen, I think this is going to be up and down points, whether it's running, passing. The -4.5 for the Steelers, I don't have a feel for, but over 53, I think this game's got 37-28, 34. 30 written all over it.
It's the Mahomes factor. Say it, Jimmy. Mahomes factor.
But it's not just Mahomes. I mean, the Chiefs have weapons all over the place. I think the Chief defense stinks. I don't think the Steeler defense. Everyone thinks the Steelers have one of the top defenses in the NFL.
No.
I think we're going to see on Sunday that you're going to be able to move the ball on Pittsburgh. I see nothing but points in this game. I don't see many defensive stops in this one. So I like the over, big number. And when you have a big number like that, it usually scares off some people. That's when you go over. Just a little tip for you there.
Yeah, that's good.
All right. This game here is very interesting. I'm going to contradict myself when I analyze this game, but the Jets are at home giving 3 points to the Dolphins. The total is 43.5. The reaction to the Jet win on Monday night, to me, is over the top for one reason. Darnold played great. You want to say the Jets have a quarterback, Darnold's the future. I have no problem with that. But then when you come out after the game and you say you knew every play that was coming, well, then you should blow out the team. So let's relax a little bit with how bad they beat the Lions. Having said that, I love the Jets -3. At home, rookie quarterback, crowd's going to be fired up. I don't think the Dolphins are any good. I mean, they beat a bad Titans team at home with, rain delays all over, big deal. You're only laying a field goal at home. That crowd's going to be insane. And the Jet defense is good. I love the Jets -3 in this game, although it's not based off of last week. Like I said, you don't want to go crazy off week 1. So it's not based off blowing out the Lions. And again, take the blowout of the Lions with a grain of salt because the Jets got 5 interceptions claiming they knew every play. So you're supposed to win that game. So I'm all over the Jets here. Scott?
I like the Jets here. I don't love the Jets. I don't like them as much as you here, Jimmy. I just and for the reasons you pointed out, I don't know what to read into that first game. It's almost like once you start hearing like, yeah, we knew the plays. It's like, all right, I guess I have to wait to see if this team really is any good. I do think that they are a field goal better at home than the Dolphins, right. And for that reason,
for Darnold to play the way he did after that pick 6. On the road showed me something. Crowell ran the ball very well. I think he's been an underrated back his whole career. So I do like the offense there.
Don't get me wrong. Absolutely. Interestingly, there are some books, mostly offshore, that will open the line before the Monday night game is played.
Okay.
And it was opening there at Dolphins by 1.5.
Right. I saw Dolphins -1 initially on that.
Yeah. So, just the line is where it should be.
Yeah.
I think without question.
The
but
Dolphins
it's just kind of interesting.
Team than the Jets.
Yeah.
So
they're not. They're not.
Yeah.
And I think we can leave it at that. Yeah. And that's why I'm leaning Jets. No, I mean, But that being said, I don't think anybody here would be shocked if. We're sitting here next week and recounting a Jets-Dolphins game that the Dolphins won 24-16.
No.
I'm not saying that that's my prediction.
I was going to say, hopefully we won't be doing that. That would be a terrible podcast. I'm leaning Dolphins on this one, and not strongly. I was hoping this line would keep on growing in the Jets' favor. So the 3 is a little bit, that'll make me standoffish. But Adam Gase is my co-pilot in life. Gase is the kind of guy who keeps these designer plays in his back pocket, and if you're going to break any out, this is the game, like we talked about during the preseason. This is the battle for second place in the AFC. Excuse me, AFC East, not the AFC.
Sure, that'd be great if CBS bills it that way.
What a selling point!
It is.
What a selling point.
That's why we're doing a podcast about it next week.
The Bills, the division's so bad. We know the Patriots going to win, and the Bills are so shitty. Here's the game of the week to determine second place.
But these really are in the AFC. These are 2 wild card contenders.
Right.
So if you're Miami, you can steal this game on the road. Look, game and a half lead over the Jets. You're going to get him in Miami later. I think Gase is going to keep some stuff in his back pocket and break it out this week. But like I said, I wish it just crawled to like 3.5, 4, 4.5, something like that.
That would be a little much. I like how you say Gase has these plays. His quarterback is still Ryan Tannehill. Just remember that.
It is. I'll just say this. My favorite Gase play was, you remember when they almost upset the Seahawks a couple of years ago early in the season?
Yeah, in Seattle.
I think it was the opener, actually.
It was
It was. Gase ran this play for Kenny Stills that he had run variations of it over the course of his career. It was literally a play that he probably had in his back pocket for years and was going to break it out at a big moment, and he broke it out. Comes wide open, no one's near Kenny Stills, and he drops the ball.
And
what would have been a game-winning touchdown.
And this would be a big moment in second place in the AFC.
This would. You never forget a game like this.
We've talked too much about Jets Dolphins.
I've already forgotten about it.
All right, here we go. This will be a week 2 overreaction game for sure. The Eagles giving 3 into Tampa Bay. Fitzpatrick has the total in this game and now at 44. Gary Gramley, what's going on?
I actually, I hated this game. I'm leaning Bucks only because I think Foles is. I think it's part Foles is a pumpkin again. I don't want to overstate that. I think he's still he's fine. He's fine. They just don't have weapons right now. Bucks are better defensively. I know they gave up a lot of points last week in what was relative garbage time against obviously what's a very good offense. I think the Bucks hang around in this one though. As we see, I mean Fitzpatrick is. I'm actually. some research scientists should create the quarterback playmaker scale, and it's going to be the Rodgers-Peterman scale. On one end you have Rodgers, the other end you have Peterman. These are the guys, the total boom or bust guys. Fitzpatrick obviously leans more Peterman for the most part, but like we saw last week, good Ryan Fitzpatrick, it can put up a ton of points. So I'm leaning Bucks. I'm not crazy about this. I think there's too much volatility on both sides here.
Scott?
I don't know, Gary, how you can say the Eagles don't have weapons in the passing game. Didn't Nelson Aguilar have like 22 catches for 24 yards in the season opener? I mean, it was
something.
I've never seen a passing game that's 2 yards in a cloud of dust, but that's what it was. I'm leaning slightly to the Eagles here. I just don't believe in the Bucks. I don't know what happened. I can't explain what happened week one, but. Yeah, I normally look. I like road dogs early in the season. I cannot pull the trigger on the Bucks here, and I do think that the extra time, having the extra few days off, does make a difference. And I don't love the Eagles, but that's who I would
If
take.
we would have done this podcast 2 weeks ago,
Yep.
and you would have seen Eagles -3 at Tampa Bay, you'd be all over it, all over it. Now, Ryan Fitzpatrick goes crazy in New Orleans, and it's oh, this could be close. No. Back down to earth for Ryan Fitzpatrick this week. 24-6 Eagles.
So you like the under there, huh?
I don't think the Bucks are going to score. The 48 points last week, you said it perfectly. Cannot be explained.
Correct.
No, listen, Mike Evans is a big-time receiver. Deshaun Jackson. They have weapons but I feel like Gary disrespected the Eagles in his little summation there. Yeah, the offense is this. The Eagles won the Super Bowl. They came out week one. Everyone was all over Atlanta. They came out, won that game. And I don't see them getting tripped up in Tampa Bay against Ryan Fitzpatrick. That's just me. I love this next game, not from a betting standpoint, but just to see what happens since we just talked about the Bucks. We go right into New Orleans. They get back-to-back home games to start the season. Saints giving 8.5 to the undefeated Cleveland Browns. Total here through the roof, 49. Scott, your thoughts on this AFC-NFC battle?
Yeah, I like a big bounce-back game from the Saints. They're the far better team, and Jimmy, I'll kind of play off what you were just saying. If, sitting here, 7 days ago, 8 days ago, and you said week 2 you'd be laying less than double digits with the Saints at home against the Browns. Do you like it? Yeah, I like it a lot. And if you can't explain it from a Buccaneers perspective, you can't explain what happened from a Saints perspective, you can explain that they dropped 40 points on a below-average defense, and the Browns are also below average defense, although Myles Garrett did look good in that swampy wind and rain.
He looked very good.
I like the Saints here. I just think you can't be afraid of the number, and you can't overreact to week 1. It's just not that many points for a team that was considered top 5 going into the season against a team that was considered bottom 5 going into the season. And it's not like the Browns really showed you a ton.
I don't know about the bottom 5. That bandwagon got filled up with the total went to 6.5 for the I think
from my perspective, they're bottom 5.
Well,
that's all that matters, right, Jimmy? I mean, let's be honest.
That is true. But I do think, like you said, if you saw that line 2 weeks ago, you're salivating basically with the Saints at home, not even giving 10.
Sure.
Gary, what do you got?
Oh, I love the Saints in this one. If you ask the Saints defense as a team, what was the easiest game you had last year? It was when they went to Buffalo and faced Tyrod Taylor. They just said, we're going to keep him in the pocket, make him beat us that way. He couldn't do it. That was of course 47-10, and you know why the Bills got that 10? Nathan Peterman leading the touchdown drive. That was
what, did someone drop a pick and a deflection?
No, everybody left the building.
I was going to say that's what got him to start the following week against Chargers. But this is the thing with the Browns. You kind of wondered, okay, they new quarterback Tyrod is getting the start. Are they going to roll out some wacky option type stuff or something creative with Tyrod? They didn't. They had some creative stuff in the passing game, but they built the offense for Baker Mayfield clearly, and now. Why don't they play Baker Mayfield? That's another conversation about the questionable decision making of the of the people running the Cleveland Browns. But they don't have an offense that can beat the Saints defense. They're going to play it the same way the Bills played it a year ago, where they're going to try and win the turnover margin by such a great gap that you can, get a 6-1 turnover advantage and then tie a team at home. Is Drew Brees going to throw 4 interceptions in this game? I guess that's a possibility, and then I could see the Browns hanging around. But if this line was 18.5, I'd still be intrigued by the Saints.
Bold statement. I'll just say this: I'm gonna go real hardcore X's and O's football analysis here.
Nice.
I will not bet this game. If I had to bet it, I'd bet the Browns only because everybody and their mother, like these two gentlemen, are betting the Saints and love the Saints. Gary's laying 18.5, so that means bet the Browns. All right, let's move on.
Take the Browns in the 18.5, but
and then take the 8.5 too.
Yeah.
Everyone in America will bet the Saints on Sunday, so you know what that means. The Rams coming off their Monday night victory in Oakland, laying 13. This is the biggest line of the week for all the people still in survivor pools after the Saints eliminated most human beings. Rams minus 13 at home against Gary's Super Bowl team, the Arizona Cardinals. The total is 45.5. We'll let Gary start with his Arizona team.
I just want to clarify on this for anyone who's listening for the first time here. Lions were my dark horse Super Bowl team, and I thought the Cardinals were gonna blow away their 4.5 win total. I am kind of rethinking that, but I am going Cardinals. I'm going Cardinals in this one as sticking around. Look, division opponents, Rams coming off the late Monday nighter.
I could see in your face you're struggling to even come up to the reasons why to pick the
I will say, and we're going to talk about the Lions in a little bit, but the Cardinals I thought were the most disappointing team of Week 1. They didn't show up, and that is terrifying with the new coach there and all that. So I fear for my Cardinals win total life there. But division opponents, Rams playing the late Monday game. I think the Cardinals can stick around in this one. That's the nicest thing I can say about them. So that's why I'm taking the 13
I have a
points.
feeling if they don't stick around, we'll never hear you pick the Cardinals the rest of the season.
I'm taking the points here too. I don't have a ton to say on this. I just think it's a lot of points. Team coming off the late Monday night game, and I think there's some Week 1 overreaction a little bit to the spread here. I think that when you look at the way these teams, divisional rivals. I just think they're going to play a relatively tight game, not a 3-point game, but certainly a 7 or 10 point game is too many points.
The Rams are basically put up 50 here, but I'll get to that when we get to best bets. All right, here's one. We'll go right back to Gary's adopted teams this year. Mm-hmm. San Francisco 49ers, Jimmy G, rough Week 1 against the Vikings, -6 at home to the Lions. Total here, 47.5. Hopefully the Lions will not be letting Jimmy G know which players are coming. Gary?
I was going to say, Matthew Stafford, that's what it was with the plays. Matthew Stafford has some tells at the line of scrimmage. That's how the Jets caught on there. Let's see if the 49ers
will they
can
fix
do it.
that this week?
But,
Matt Patricia get his pencil out of his ear and fix the play calls?
Yeah, that pencil on the laminated play sheet will have all the answers.
In all seriousness, 6 is big.
6,
a little bit of a large
6 is a big
line.
number. I'm going Detroit in this one. I'm going to tamp down the confidence in my Detroit Lions at this point, but I'm going Detroit in this one. When it comes down to it, 49ers banged up on offense. Jimmy was fine. He was not Jimmy of last year. He's missing a little bit high and wide a little bit. So we'll see. Right side of that line is banged up. Let's see if Marquise Goodwin is back. They're still figuring things out at running back. But I just want to point out, Lions, even though the Jets knew their plays, that was a 17-17 game 5 minutes into the third quarter. It fell apart when they had to start forcing the ball down the field, and then it turned into interceptions, and then it was Matt Castle time, and et cetera. But I'm going with Lions.
The definition of a silver lining. Scott, what do you got on this game?
I'm taking the Lions as well. Don't love it. Kind of like it. I'm sort of in between there. I think it's too many points. I don't think the Lions are as bad as they showed. And I just don't think at this point the 49ers should be favored by that many points. Let's see them, kind of in that role. So, don't love it. Kind of like it. I do think the Lions are significantly better than they showed, which I know isn't saying much, but it is saying much when you're playing against 49ers and getting that much points.
Thanks for backing me up, brother.
Yeah, I hesitated to do so, but I got to go with you on that one.
All right, we go to the game of the week now, 425 CBS. Most of the country gets this one. The Jaguars coming off their victory against the Giants at home. They are getting a point from the New England Patriots, total 45.5. I would assume the boys here have plenty to say about this one. Scott, take it away.
I just don't see how, and Jimmy, I'm sort of echoing things you've said in recent weeks, right? Mm-hmm. Until proven otherwise, why would you try to bet against this quarterback-coach combination? And would I be shocked if the Jaguars win this game? No, I wouldn't be shocked if they win this game.
Line's only one.
Line's only one. But, I mean, you just look at what's happened in recent history, and I don't see any reason to believe strongly enough that the Patriots aren't going to find a way to win this game. If you want, some recent history numbers to back it up against AFC South opponents in last 21 games against AFC South opponents, they're 21-0.
Wow,
straight up, 14-7 against the spread. Straight up is even more relevant in this one because it's pretty much a pick'em game. I just think that you look at the Patriots, they're better on the road than they are at home, if you can believe that, but it is true. I mean, they're 11-1 straight up, 9-3 against the spread away from home against AFC teams since the start of 16. There's just so many things pointing in that direction, and what's on the field as well. I just feel like they're going to stop the running game, and they're going to put the ball in Bortles' hands. They did it in the AFC title game last year, and the Jaguars could have and in some ways should have won that game. But I think they're going to take their chances with it again, and I think you'll see Bortles, he's not going to have the game of his life, and I think he did in the AFC title game, and they still didn't win it. So for all those reasons, yeah, I'm taking the Patriots here.
I wouldn't bet this game. I'm going to watch it. I'm going to enjoy it. I wouldn't bet it. The one thing I would say is I know I did this. I think last week in picking the Giants, I think I underestimated and disrespected the Jaguar defense a little bit. The Jaguar defense is very good.
That was a crummy day out, too, though.
Yeah. But that defense is legit. They played really well. And, this is a good test for them with New England coming in week 2. If they win this game, we know that, they're set up now for the rest of the season. But, again, I will rarely, if ever, bet against the Patriots. So I would stay away from this one. Gary?
I'm going with the Jaguars lean here. I think this is their Super Bowl in week 2 here.
Right.
I just wonder how the sort of, that Patriots inversed offense with the running backs and the tight ends, with all the speed you have at linebacker in Jacksonville, I just don't think it's an ideal matchup. I think the Patriots might be out of weapons, not have enough on the outside to be able to beat this defense. So.
Yeah, they've already been bringing in receivers right after week 1, the Patriots, so they want to get Gronk some help on that offense. This game here, we probably won't spend a ton of time on. Denver -6 at home against the Raiders. Disastrous opener for John Gruden. In Oakland, big line though, 6. Gar, what do you got?
Yeah, I Oakland coming off the late Monday night game and going to the thin air, I think is a rough combination. Obviously, they have plenty of a changeover going on there too. They were a little bit banged up after Monday night, so I'm going Denver here. Not that's tough to have the -5.5 when you're a Case Keenum team, but I'm leaning Denver here.
I'll take the points. Yeah. I don't have a lot to say about it. I think Gary sort of segued in unintentionally there. I'm not laying that many points with Case Keenum in a team that's I'm still trying to figure out really what they have.
Yeah, and the total here is 46, which I think is pretty high, but Denver defense is good. It's an underplay for me, too, with Case Keenum, but again, we'll be watching Patriots-Jaguars at this time probably. Sunday night, NBC, Cowboys giving a field goal to the Giants. We all picked the Giants last week. Let's see who's going to jump off the bandwagon. We start with Scott.
I'm still on the bandwagon, and I'm really. It's more that I'm still on the anti-Cowboys bandwagon.
Yeah, you did well last week picking the Panthers.
To be quite honest, I just think that right now, Giants are as good a team, if not better, than the Cowboys. The Cowboys have serious issues, and again, I normally don't read a lot into what happens in the preseason, but we start to see signs of it. And with that offensive line banged up, I just think that it's just way too risky to take the Cowboys here. So I like the Giants in this spot. Can't say I love them because there's still but I like the Giants.
Gary?
No, I complete agreement there. I'm going Giants on this one. Like we said, Giants, they can stop the run. They can't rush the passer. They can't necessarily cover for a long time, but it's not a problem when you're facing this Cowboys team.
Here we go again, because I like the Giants too. Like I said, I'm not going to let week 1 scare me. I think the Giants got did in by a very, very good defense.
Yeah.
The Cowboys don't have a very, very good defense.
Giants aren't good on the offensive line, but the Jaguars are unbelievably good on the defensive line. And
one thing, I thought Eli played well, and the Giants usually do well in Dallas. That they don't get scared by going into Dallas, so I like the Giants here. And then the week wraps up Monday night with the Bears of the heartbreaker Sunday night, giving 3 points at home. Games in Chicago. They're giving 3 to the Seahawks. Total here 43.5. Gary.
Yeah, I think I'm going to be a lone wolf on this one. I have Seattle in this one. I'm just not buying on the Bears yet. I think they're still working on what they have defensively. Roquan Smith, all of a sudden, they tried to play him for the entire second half last week. It didn't work out so well. Khalil Mack is still being sort of eased in there. I always say Russell Wilson factor with the Seahawks. I mean, yes, they're not talented on offense, but Wilson can put up your 24, 27 points. I'm not buying what the Bears are doing offensively yet. And you saw it, everyone, if you were on Twitter Sunday night after the first quarter, this offense, it's the new age Bears, and then last 3 quarters. I think their last 8 drives
the old
were
age Bears.
It was 4 punts and a turnover on downs. And
yeah, you have new coaches. I think they get a little tight. Lambeau Field, the Rodgers coming back. I will say, I know it's against the law. I hope I don't get arrested if there are any cops. I know it's against the law to say anything negative about Aaron Rodgers this week. If Kyle Fuller knows how to catch, Aaron Rodgers and the Packers lose and the Bears win. That to me, that game became about Aaron Rodgers. It was not. That game was about Kyle Fuller losing the game for the Bears. Bears should have won. I love the Bears this week. I think at home, the fans should be fired up. Khalil Mack is there now. Trubisky did not play well in the second half. I agreed. I think, this is a home road thing for me. If they were on the road this week, the Bears, I'd be nervous. I think at home, though, it helps them tremendously. And they should be 1-0 if their DB did not basically give the game away. Scott?
You knew the moment that happened that the game was over.
No doubt about it. Absolutely.
And it's, you're right. I love the Bears here. I really do. And it's also, look, it's as much as I'm down on the Seahawks. And, I threw it out earlier that 6-24 record. I mentioned earlier when I was talking about the Chiefs and the Seahawks too, are back-to-back road games to start. Not a great road team to begin with. Pete Carroll, 2-11-1 against the spread in September games on the road. So I really do like the Bears a lot here. I think that it's a good matchup for them. I think it's a very weak defense for Seattle, and I think the Bears are going to win this one quite handily.
Now, before we get to our best bets, the one game we did not talk about this week is the Packers, because they're at home with the Vikings going into Lambeau. As of this taping, the Rodgers injury, we don't know if he's playing, not playing. There's no definitive word. I think he's playing. I've had sources tell me he's going to play. I'll just say this. Whether he plays or not, I'm picking the Vikings. Again, the Bears should have won that game last week. I was not impressed with the Packers. I think they're very limited on offense. I don't think their defense is great. I think the Vikings are the real deal. So whether he plays or not, I would bet the Vikings in this game. What do you guys thoughts on this one? We don't know what's going on, but
yeah, I was going to say, if Rodgers plays, I just wouldn't touch the game. I don't know what's going on with him.
If he plays, I don't think he's going to be 100%. I think the Vikings are the better team. I think we talked about in the preseason. I think that I don't know if the Packers are a top 25 NFL team from player number 2 to player number 53.
I agree.
And because of that, I like the Vikings here. I mean, yeah, we have to see what the line is, but I think talking about it now, Vikings.
All right, Gary, how many best bets do you have here in week 2 of the NFL?
So I got 3. I got the Saints. Sometimes it's that easy. I have the Steelers and I have the Texans.
Right, so Saints minus 8.5, Texans minus 2.
Minus 2 at Tennessee, and then Steelers minus, what do we have at? Minus 4.5. Yeah, minus 4.5 at home against the Chiefs.
So 3 favorites for Gary. Scott, your best bets.
Love the Falcons. And I love the Bears. I would say that those Those are the ones I'm most confident about.
So Falcons minus 5.5 at home against Carolina, and the Bears minus 3 at home against the Seahawks.
That's correct.
Those are your two best bets. For the week.
Those are the two I'm going with.
I got a slew this week, which is ridiculous for week 2, but I love the Jets minus 3. I love the Jets minus 3 at home against the Dolphins. Eagles minus 3 on the road at Tampa Bay. Sorry, Ryan Fitzpatrick, not happening again. Love the Rams minus 13 against the Cardinals. That's got 38-10 written all over it. And I love the Bears minus the 3 against the Seahawks. So those are our best bets for week 2. And enjoy the games. New England, Jacksonville, 4:25 Sunday. I'm sure everyone will be tuned in. And decent primetime games with Giants, Dallas, and Seahawks, Bears. We will see you next week right here on the MMQB Gambling Podcast.